What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Mayrand podcast. My guest today is Tom Wallisch. Tom is the GOAT of free skiing. He's been one of the most influential free skier of all time. He's won every competition there is, and he's also produced countless film segments with almost every production company there is. Since stepping away from competitions in 2015, he's still been super active on the scene, producing films with good company while also hosting his own events and being the voice of free skiing on television. In this episode, we talked about Tom being the voice of free skiing on television for major competitions like X Games and the Olympics. And we talked a bunch about his new movie from Good Company called Crescendo. Together, we went through the history of Good Company and what led to this year's film. We talked about producing a full segment at 35, working with longtime friends Tim Mcchesney and AJ Dakoulas, working with skiers from the younger generation like Tucker Fitzsimons and Walker Woodring, witnessing someone on top of his game like Colby Stevenson, the difficulties of producing ski movies, and much, much more. Big thanks to the sponsors of this episode, Axis Board Shop, Planks Clothing, and Dick Ann's Restaurants. Also, big shout out to the patrons on Patreon, Will Cameron, Raf Diaz, Holden Baldassi, Laurent-Olivier Martin, Ryan Bruninghouse, Sam Sheff, Wyatt Loney, Nick Crockett, and Brendan Hart. Let's go! Mr. Tom Wallisch, welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be back on. It's been too long, a couple years now. Good to connect again.
Yeah, man. Stoked to have you. Well, you've been busy. A year ago, you were on a big Olympic tour, right?
Yeah, not doing the competitions, but calling all the competitions and just trying to keep my mind straight on the difference between a 14, 16, 18, 19, 21, and all the tricks, and being able to recognize them, what kids can do, what people can and can't do. And yeah, calling all the tricks for NBC, for the Olympics, for X Games, for all the Grand Prix and World Cups. It was a commentating year for sure.
Yeah, it's getting hard. Like, I'm as big of a fan as anybody else. And for those who want to watch it, the whole competitions from the Olympics are on YouTube, so you can just watch them. Dude, the big air it's hard to, even for like ski nerds, it's rowdy.
Yeah. And when you get a slow-mo replay, like definitely you can kind of take your look through it or try to do like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 count. But like
Yeah.
for me, when I look at it, all the stuff nowadays, like if you watch it consistently and you're trying to like call the tricks right off the bat, you develop just like an eye for the aesthetic of it. Like you see spinny, super spinny, and that like combination of like motion, I just know right away, or I'm making a very educated guess. So it's really fun to like when I'm in it and I'm doing it all season, I feel like I know exactly what trick each athlete's going to do. So I kind of like, oh, they did what I thought, or that looked like more than I thought. So it must be a 360 more. Like you kind of just develop like the experience to see it, but it's really fun. And trying to explain like 5 spins, 2 corks to the general public, at least across the US, is really interesting because you like want to make it sound insane, but you also want to make it sound possible and that it's still fun for these athletes to do it because you want to get people into the sport. It's like really fun to walk that line of like telling a story to the core audience and then also trying to make mainstream America interested by free ski and let their kids go out and try it. It's fun for me. I love the commentating work.
Yeah. And usually in commentating, there's kind of 2 people working together and each one has like a
Correct.
different role. One is kind of the expert and the other one is more the communicator, maybe.
Yep.
Are you only tasked when you do these? Like, how precise is your mandate? Like, are you only told to talk about the tricks, or can you also say like, hey, this is a Woodsy coming in. I've known him for a while, and here's a cool story. Like, how vast is your possibilities? Let's say.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of go anywhere with it. So some people I've worked with a ton, and in the commentating or in the TV production world, we call it the play-by-play announcer would be the other guy, and I'm the color commentator. So I just add color to each run or each athlete where that person gets us from play-by-play. So from athlete to athlete. But I kind of just like, if it's somebody I've worked with a lot, I stick to telling the runs. But then also, once somebody's introduced, or yeah, Woodsy's coming in, like the producers in my ear would much rather hear less 450 on, 450 off, and more, what about this guy? Tell us how Woodsy came from dry slopes and the stories of him learning on artificial snow. And like, there's more stories that are more interesting to the audience than me saying every number of every spin on every rail. So that is a lot still to me, and like we'll step on each other's toes a little bit. Like if the score comes in and my other announcer isn't like looking at the screen as like tabulating something or looking at something else, like if it's the gold medal score, I'm going to jump in and say that's a 95 to the top, where that is kind of his role to go scores, intro athlete, tell us what the score is. But like we'll step on each other, or like the guy Todd Harris that I announced the Olympics with, who's done a ton of NBC stuff for free skiing, he knows all the athletes too. Like he's been calling this sport as that play-by-play guy for 10 plus years. He called all my runs back in the day. So like he does know it. So he'll also get in and like talk a little bit about the color. Like, wow, that one was special, right, Tom? Like, is he the only guy that can do it? And we kind of have a conversation about
Right.
tricks. And it really helps having somebody in there. Like I've done some work with people that maybe don't know the sport as well, and they'll stick to their zone. They're not coming into the conversation. I feel like the announcing is better when both of us have a good understanding, and then we can kind of both slide into each role at least a little bit to make it like more of a conversation about what's good, what's bad, what do the judges want, etc.
And it's great to have you do these because you're the goat and you know your
Yeah,
stuff, but it helps a ton having your there's a lot of research that is not needed for you to hop on and you
yeah,
we gave the example of Woodsy. Well, if you don't want to talk about his 450 on, you already know that it's his third Olympics and that did he end up fourth or fifth, something like that, and you can mention
yeah.
that. So you can tell the whole story without having to rely, it all flows naturally.
Yeah, and we do have so much research, at least at those big ones. Like I'll have a card on every athlete, like Woodsy's top results, hometown, mom and dad's name, where he's from, how he learned to ski, interesting fact. And it's like, that's great to have all that. And I like study that in case I forgot what his results were beforehand. But when I'm in the booth, I'm not looking at that like stat card unless like we really need to know something, like this would be the first person from the UK to ever win a gold medal. Like that's a great thing to just have underlined in
Hmm.
case Woodsy's doing well. But for the most part, yeah, I know all the men and women in the scene really well, either personally or now I'm following them on Instagram, and I at least know like what they're into, what their style's like, what tricks they're capable of, where they're from, who they're friends with in the scene, and can kind of like tell the story without looking at notes, which I think makes it easier for me because like I'm okay at multitasking, but I can't be reading, looking at the score, not looking at the screen, and like speaking eloquently. So I try when I'm in the booth to like, I'll take little notes, but I'm mainly just watching the action and telling you what I see and what I remember, rather than like, I don't know what Woodsy's score was from the first run, but I know he did, a switch right double cork, triple cork 14 octo, and he fell. So he needs to land this one. I just remember it all because I'm such a fan of the sport that it's easy enough to kind of remember as you go and call it play by play.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's way more important to have someone tell us that than the score. Because
Yeah.
that's the
I mean, the scores are important, but like at the end, if it's not overtaking a top spot or it's a storyline, yeah, it's not.
yeah. Let's say you go into a football game, you don't care if a team's trailing by three or well, not three, but like 4 or 5 or 6. You just need to be told that, hey, he needs a touchdown. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Yeah, and you don't really care if the score is a 75 or a 78.5. Like if it's not going to win, and why is it not going to win? What part of the run wasn't good enough, and what's he going to do better on the next run? So you know where to draw the viewer's eyes to, like what part of that run needs to be better for them to do good
Exactly. Like, is his run a podium contender or a winning contender? If so,
or
what's
not.
missing? Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun. I really enjoy it. I mean, until somebody else comes in and really wants to do it, it's not like the end all be all dream job of mine. I just like saw it as a way to like still go to all these events, and I like love the sport so much and love talking about them. I was like, if no one else wants to do it, I think I'd be okay at this. Like until somebody else like wants to come in and call the tricks and has a better voice and better explanation than me, I'm happy to do it just so that we at least in America have somebody on that broadcast that like is from the sport, knows the sport really, really well, and can do a good job of explaining it to the mass audience. At the end, the end goal in all of this is like, how do we get more people to just participate? If they hear it and it sounds exciting and the guy explains it to them, maybe they want to go try it.
And now it's time for a first sponsor break. Dakoulas is a family-owned fast food restaurant chain with 12 locations in the Montreal region. Close to 70 years after opening their first restaurant on Montreal's Boulevard Pineuf, Dakoulas is still focused on what matters, the same great menu with great food made with quality ingredients. I've said it, I'm a Dakoulas super fan, and many people ask me what's my go-to. I have to say it's their famous Wally burger. A double cheeseburger with slices of pepperoni. It's so good. Dakoulas is now selling their sauce in their restaurants and in many Metro grocery stores throughout Quebec. Plus, they've put a bunch of great recipes to go along with it on their website at dakoussauce.com. Also, big news, their Saint Jérôme location is reopened. Same location, brand new building. Go check them out when you pass by Saint Jérôme. Support companies who support skiing. Support Dakoulas restaurants. And you're doing a great job. And also, to your point of a voice in the US, you're a voice in the world. Because nowadays, X Games is live streamed on YouTube. And
Everywhere,
so,
yeah.
like, when I'm watching it, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, nice. Everybody gets to hear me talk a little bit too much. Sorry, everyone, for my bad jokes and too many triple court call outs.
The best one was when you did Knuckle Huck and you were commentating while competing.
That was scary. Like no one can really tell, but like the amount of radio equipment in my jacket, like I had, I have the mic, so it's like the lav kit mic, so it's in my ear, and then I have the like big sensor that, or like it's like a radio antenna thing sending the broadcast out. I have the mic wired to me. There's like so much packaging on me for like radio equipment that I was like, if I fall, I'm gonna like break a rib easily with all this equipment in there. Was like, you can't fall. But like, it was just so fun to like ski in front of that crowd again that year. I was like, oh, wow, this is a little nerve wracking. Like, I haven't been in front of this big of a crowd just skiing in any regard for like a couple years. I was like, just don't look like an idiot. And we joke, like, you're never supposed to spectate as a commentator, like, what the injury is on somebody. Like, if they fall down, it looks like they broke your arm. You can't say, like, he should be okay. It looks like it's just his arm. Like, what if they have a compressed, they mess their heart up and they die? Like, you never speculate on what the injury is. And my joke the whole time was, well, if I crash and I'm commentating, can I speculate? Because, like, let's see, I think he broke his arm. Yep, nope, it's definitely broken. 100%. I'm 100% sure. So we like joked all the time that I could speculate. And I was also like expected to hand out the gold medal for that Knuckle Huck event. And I was like, well, what happens if I win? Like, they're like, oh, I guess we never thought of that. Like, you can't really hand it out to yourself. I was like, you guys just basically assumed I wasn't going to win? They're like, yeah, kind of. And I didn't
Yeah.
win. It's not like I tried super hard, but it was just a funny like situation to be put in. Like, okay, thanks for the assumption that I just had no chance.
That would have been the funniest. Like, you end up winning and you troll someone. You come in to give it to someone. You're like, no, it's me.
Can you put this around my neck, please? No, but that was really fun just to be back in the spotlight and to ski with like everybody that year that's current in the scene, and like just the crowd there. X Games can't be topped for that crowd at the bottom of like the Knuckle Huck big air combo landing. It is just massive, exciting, exhilarating. I mean, every adjective you can use to describe.
Out of curiosity, what's your setup, or where are you at talking about crowds and all that? When let's say you're commentating big air, are you like on a
Yeah.
scaffold just with the crowd? Like, where are you at?
For the most part, X Games especially, we are in like a truck. We're in a production truck in the parking lot. So we're on site, and I get to see like all the athletes in person, and I watch practice and I ski the course with everybody. But then when we commentate, we're not like up in a scaffolding overlooking it. We're maybe 200-300 yards away in a production truck or like a big announcing booth, and we have tons of space. It's really nice, but we're all on monitors. I'm not seeing like live crowd reactions or anything like that because the noise from all that and the scaffolding shaking or
Yeah.
anything, like we're all off monitors. So at some point I could just be anywhere in the world. And for these events, I love being on site because it's so much nicer to like see all the athletes, see the jump, know the weather, know the crowd. But like for Olympics, I wasn't in China. I was in Stamford, Connecticut, where NBC is based. And I was just in a booth at 2 in the morning calling Olympic big air in the afternoon in China, just off of a monitor. And they can do it now because the tech's so good and it makes it real easy for all of us to put it all together. And then there's no visa and COVID testing and China travel. But like, I just feel like my commentating is better when I'm like at X Games and I know, okay, like I talked to Burke Root earlier. He said he's doing this, or he's got like new idea. Like it's so much better than texting these athletes. Like if I'm on site and I'm watching practice, I'm like, what are you thinking? Do you think this will come out? What about that grab? Like I get so much more beta from everybody to have like a better expectation and a better call come
Yeah.
TV time.
Or just hanging out. Let's say you hang out at the top of the big air in run, just chilling.
Yeah.
Well, you can hear the conversation, you can see people, you
Oh
can
yeah.
get a lot of data that, anyways. Did you, were you bummed of not going to China? Or were you like glad with all the struggle with COVID and all that? Were you glad of staying home?
I was kind of glad. I mean, it was really nice to be home where like I knew I wasn't going to have to do some crazy testing protocol and maybe not get in or maybe get stuck there. So it was nice to be in the US where like I knew what I was going to eat every day. I knew how the production was going to run and we were so focused. But like being at the Olympics is part of the joy of it. Like even if you're
Hmm.
not competing, like to be surrounded by that environment, those athletes, the other people working the event, like I'm definitely a little sad I didn't go, but I got to go just watch 2018, and hopefully NBC will send us in 2026. So I'll get to go back and see it in person. But like in terms of the China year, it was just so high pressure to get stuck over there to like mess up somehow. I was really thankful to just be in Stamford, Connecticut, have our little booth to and from the hotel, and I was like locked in on Olympics. Like there's nothing else to do for me up there. I couldn't really go anywhere. So like I'm studying research, I'm looking at the event, texting people that are over there, getting all the info, and it just felt like really cool to be locked in. I'm hanging out with like, you know, Mosley and Ted Ligety and all the people that are calling other sports. So
Yep.
it felt like we were announcing crew, like we were the Olympic broadcast team, and you're like hanging out with everybody else that does that work for different sports, the curling guys, the hockey people, like everybody was all together. So it was really cool to get to know everybody from different sports that are now in that like realm of calling their sports.
Yeah, that's dope. And last question regarding the whole commentating side. You know, we mentioned briefly about how hard it is to not mess up with the spins and all that. Do you find it harder um, commentating pipe, meaning that you're not a pipe skier? You know, it's not
Yeah.
something you've been around as much. And personally, when I watch it, it's kind of harder. You know, because we're not counting spins the same. You do a dub 10 in the pipe, it's a dub 12. You know, there's
Yeah.
always that. So and when it's switched, like I find always that it's a bit harder to just, if I would want to call tricks, I wouldn't be as confident.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit harder just since I never really participated on the highest level in it. But at the same time, for the most part, the tricks are smaller. So, like,
Hmm.
yes, they are doing 16s, but like when you see a 16, you know it's a 16 because it is like crazy. And I think for me, like, the thing that does get confusing is, yeah, switch to forward and forward to switch. But like if you watched a couple events and tried to do it in a row, and again know what someone's going to do, like Simon Dartois drops in and he's dropping in switch. I know he's got this big switch 12 that brings him to forward. And I'd think it
Hmm.
was a 9 if I didn't watch him do it at a couple events. Like you kind of know what to expect, and that helps me almost stay up to date with like what to say is just my practice of having seen it. The first event of the year when someone does something new, forward to switch or switch to forward, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, it's so and so, but it's definitely a little harder. But the slope style stuff is just in big air, it's just so much spinning and happens so fast. In pipe, like big air is one thing. You kind of got to call the trick. It's one jump. Slow or pipe, if I don't quite know if that was a 9 or a 12, like I can just skip it, focus
Mm,
on the grab, go to
yeah.
the next trick, and then when there's a replay of it, I'll say, this is another look at that switch 12. Like
Yeah.
I can take a breather, not get it wrong. If it's all happening so fast, keep telling whatever the story is about the event. It's like big air is like, well, that was it. What was it? And I'm like, oh, 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 oh. Yeah, it was a 16. And to throw Colby under the bus before we get into talking about Colby, the reason I don't feel bad if I get the tricks wrong is 2 years ago at X Games, he did a switch 19, got to the bottom, and asked Mac and Alex, who were there, and like I'm around, like, was that a 16 or a 19? And Colby didn't know what his own trick was. Sorry, Colby, for throwing you under the bus,
He
but
got
like,
lost.
if he didn't like get lost, he landed it, but he definitely was going for the 19, but I think like spun out in a weird way. And like these things are all so much muscle memory and feel that
Hmm.
like you're thinking of adding a spin, but then you don't do the math in your head. You know you're doing an extra 3 at the end, but you like don't know if you catted out of it and landed or if you did spin it because there's so much rotation. So I was like, okay, Colby, if you didn't know what trick it was, if I call it a 16 and it was a 19, I'm sorry. At least you didn't know.
And now it's time for another sponsor break. Axis Board Shop has been dedicated to free skiing since its inception in 2002. At a time when some people and brands were still looking down on free skiing, Axis believed in it fully. After 20 years of supporting athletes, movies, competitions, events, and so much more, Axis is still going strong. Above all, Axis is a ski shop where you'll find everything you need for skiing, snowboarding, or skateboarding. Check them out in store in Saint-Sauveur or online at axisboutique.com. Support companies who support skiing. Support Axis Board Shop. That's something that I think doesn't happen these days as much because guys are really trained and they repeat a trick 1,000 times on the bag before doing it. But I,
Yeah.
re- I was, how do you say? I saw some of that back in the days. Like I was filming in Whistler with Godboo and JF Full when dubs were first becoming a thing, and there were times where JF did a dub 14 by mistake, and
Yeah.
Alexi did a switch 12 dub 12 by mistake, and they land and they're like, "Oh shit, what did I just do?"
Because you set for maybe a switch dub 10 or for a forward dub 12 and the
Yeah.
rotation's too much and you just bring it to your feet and you're not sure if it's a 10 or a 14 because they didn't hit the bag like you're saying a ton. They didn't know exactly where their body was. They just have so much air awareness that you like get your feet back under you no matter what. That's the end all be all thing with hitting a jump on skis. So like that's pretty funny. Like it used to be a little bit more, and like more people at X Games would be like, I'm gonna try to add a spin to the end of that. And we're like, whoa, dude, is that possible? We're at X
Mm.
Games now, it's like, oh, you're gonna try a 21? Okay, so you've done that 1,000 times on an airbag. Can't wait to see if it works. It probably will because you know what the trick is.
Yeah. It was the apex of fuck around and find out.
Oh my god, yeah. Just everybody's so rogue. I loved it. And it's much safer now, I gotta say, but I mean, there was always some way to maybe train a water ramp or something, but like, or a backcountry jump. But yeah, everything was just a little bit more rogue when it was like, never done a double cork, better try it in this event. Here we go. It was so scary almost.
Do you have good memories of that time of like, there was a time where it quickly stepped up into a few years from doing dubs to unnat dubs to triple corks, Do you have some good experience or memories from that time, or was it rough for you?
No, I loved it. I mean, I think it's especially like the first unnatural and like both way double corks era that was like a highlight for me because I've never probably been the like air awareness, amazing big spinner, big air guy. Like I've always been, yeah, I trained on some trampolines and I'm good at hitting jumps, but I've never been the guy trying to like do the craziest thing. But that era when triples first came out and we were first doing unnat dubs was like where I was the most dialed in the air and felt like I was with everybody at the forefront of progression. And like that year at Joss when me and LJ were doing switch on that dubs for the first time was like, I mean, you just don't know. You're like, I've done it kind of on the trampoline, but like my switch right takeoff's pretty poor. Let's see how this goes. And it was just like such an adventure and such a like thrilling time. Like there's not many more tricks nowadays that are left to be done. Where like at that time, when we're looking at each other trying it, we're like, this is the first time anybody's done the unnatural way switch double. Like we just knew it. And like now you could do any trick. I bet you're probably not the first because there's so many kids doing tricks and it's really hard to be the first to do anything nowadays. You have to spin so much, so technical. And like at that time, it was like, yeah, sure, if you grab safety, good enough. Now it's like, well, did you cap the blunt? Did you hold the grab the whole time? If you didn't, it doesn't count. And like we were like, dude, I touched my boot, held safety a little bit. It's an unnat dub. It counts. So it was a little bit more carefree, a little bit easier. But I remember those times well. Even like first triple corks was like, that was nuts. Like I've never even on a trampoline done a triple cork and I'm just going to like chuck one. Okay, let's see what one more time feels like. It was exhilarating.
Where was your first one? Do you remember?
Triple cork?
Yeah.
The first one I did was on a jump in Whistler that Sherpa Cinema was filming on. That it was like a jump MSP built for a couple weeks before that Charles built that Russ did a trip 14 on and maybe a switch triple 12 as well. And I did a switch trip 14 on that. And then later that same year, or maybe the next year, did the forward 14 at Mammoth and Wallisch project. Those are the only two I've ever done.
Really?
Yeah. Forward 14 and switch trip 14. And I've done them. I did the switch one like twice, the forward one like 2 or 3 times. And I haven't done them since. It might be it for me. Maybe a backcountry jump will approach it, but like the park triples are out for me.
Yeah. Okay, well, you need a special jump. You need a special occasion. It's not as if you're throwing them out for fun at that point.
No. And now it's been over 10 years, like 11 or 12 years since I did one. I don't really want to try another one. I'm a lot older now.
Just for the sake of it, you're 36 in 4 years for your birthday, little triple.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I already pre-claimed about 12 or 13 years ago that I would do a double cork 1080 at 50. So it only makes sense that I should do a trip 14 at 40 just to stay ahead of the curve for my double cork 1080 at 50. I mean, I figure if Douglas can still do a D7, like still do a cork 7, he did one at 50. I mean, the dub 10 was like the cork 7 for me in my prime. So I'm like, Douglas is still sending. Like he did the D7, he invented the D7. Like I did a lot of dub 10s. I can do one dub 10 at 50. Fingers crossed.
Which one would be your go-to, forward dub 10 or switch dub 10?
When I originally claimed it, I think the forward one was my go-to, but I blew my knee doing a forward one in 2013. I still do them a good bit, but the switch one, for some reason, like I've done so many that I don't think I'll ever forget that feeling. Like I think if I was worried about like my body, like knees and stuff, and the jump isn't perfect, I think I could just slip off the lip and do a switch dub 10 almost for the rest of my life. It's right there. But maybe not. I mean, I say that now, but give me 14 more years. Like I'm old. I'm not 50 yet. Like that's a long ways away.
And now it's time for another sponsor break. I love Planks Clothing. I've been using their gear for 3 seasons now, and I only have great things to say. Great, stylish products that get the job done whether I'm skiing on the hill or filming street with the boys. The new 2024 Planks collection is now available. A whole new collection of jackets, pants, hoodies, sweatshirt, accessories, and much more for the upcoming winter. My personal favorite of the bunch, the slide-away jacket that's looking super stylish. Check it out at your local ski shop or at planksclothing.com. Support companies who support skiing. Support Planks Clothing. You mentioned it quickly. Good company with not good company, but you mentioned it quickly with the Wallisch project. You're dropping a new movie this fall called Crescendo. We're gonna get into it, but I was down to maybe go back a bit into the history of Good Company with you. So
For
I'll
sure.
go on a long rant, and I'll have a question for you at the end. But basically, you blew on 2007 with the Super Unknown. You film with Level One. You film with 4x9 at that point. You become the pretzel man we all know and love. During a span of what, 6 7 years, you film with all the biggest companies there is: Level One, 4x9, Field Productions, Sherpas, Matchstick, and others maybe that I'm forgetting.
Yeah, TGR, everything, it felt
TGR.
like.
Some seasons you get 3 segments in a season, so like you dedicate a lot of time and effort to filming, but also you see every company there is. I'm guessing everyone works kind of the same, but also kind of different. Um, then comes 2013. You branch off from cruise and film companies, and you do the Wallisch project, which is a season long 10-minute video project solely focused on you. Then 2014, there's the whole Olympic stuff where you try and make it to the US team, going in with an ACL tear,
Yeah.
which I recommend everyone to go watch Skier's Discretion, which was an awesome video you made to recap that. So then that's a big bummer of a season where you try to make the Olympics, you don't make it. You got to rehab your knee. Must have been shite. And then come back in 2015, you come back with Good Company. New video production company, new projects. You're done with competing. Tell me where, how, when, why, what. How did Good Company come to life?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I'd say it came to life before it was actually called Good Company or became what it was. It was always in my head. In the year of 2013, when I filmed Wallisch Project with Kyle Decker, we had so much fun, and so much of the season was spent going where I wanted to go with whoever I wanted to go with. So, like, while I'm alone in that video, I shot urban with Nicholas Eriksson and Tim Mcchesney in Sweden, and I filmed urban with John Ware and Tim and a bunch of guys in the East Coast. I filmed backcountry with all of our Utah crew. Like, I was filming where I wanted to go, like what locations I wanted with Kyle, who's like one of my all time best friends, and going like where we wanted, doing what we wanted, and put it together. So even though it was a solo project, it's kind of what Good Company became, which was just me learning to love more of a producer role in the filmmaking. So instead of just being told by Berman at Level One or Philip at Field Production, like there's a spot open for another skier on a trip to this urban location. Like, can you make it? It was more like me checking the forecast, seeing it's going to snow in a cool city I've never been to, and then inviting my friends or the athletes that I want to put on out with me. So it was like me taking more of the director producer role, which I found that I just loved more. Like, I didn't like just having my season be like go with whoever whenever there's a spot open, which was great when I was younger because I was like, I'll go on any trip. I'm just gonna go ski as hard as I can every day and fuck shit up. But then as you get older, you're like, I kind of want to be surrounded by the people that like I really enjoy because we're out till 2 in the morning, and like it's fun to be surrounded by the people you really enjoy being around. And I wanted like more of a say in like what we filmed, where we went with it, how we put it out. Like, to me, the like DVD sales were gone and the full movie was gone. And while it's like still there for me with Wallisch Project and then with Good Company, we're like, how do we just do more for free or put it on the internet or more short form and like more quicker? And we were just trying to change the dynamic a little bit. And it was just more enjoyable for me to like have that sort of director role. So it kind of just came from Wallisch Project, Kyle's head, all of our friends. Like, the crew ends up being, guys from Level One, guys from 4x9, like everybody in that like space just coming back together, just calling it something different so we have a name. Good Company was just, it's just good company, like good people to be around. And it was the people I wanted to be around. It was never meant to be just my thing, but I just wanted a little bit more of a say on my own season. And then Kyle and AJ took it and were like, we're going on a trip with Carl and Thane to film some backcountry. And I'm like, I can't go. I got to go to X Games. But like, get it. Like, that's awesome that you guys are in that space of like the people you want to film. Or Kyle always loved shooting with DeLorem, who was in like our first Good Company 1 and stuff. And it's like, it's so sick to have him be in something and they're so close that they would film together, where it's hard to track him down for something else. So the the pre sort of thought behind it was like, let's just start our own thing so that we can centralize all of our footage, give it to everybody, have ownership over it a little bit more, and then like have more of a say of where we go and what we do.
It feels like for the big dogs, the people who were uh, the stars, let's say, including you, at that point, there was really a big push to, as you said, take on the producer role. Like during those years, there was Henrik and Phil who did it a couple of years prior, but who left the production companies and were like, we'll handle it ourselves. There was even, I think the same year you started Good Company, around then, Clayton Villa, instead of being part of the Step movie, dropped Five, which was, again, same thing. Like he filmed all season with the Step crew, but like produced his own solo video project.
Yeah, it's tough, and I love all that content. And nowadays, I'm like, oh man, but how sick would it be if you guys, if, as viewers, everybody got to watch a movie nowadays that was me, Henny, Bill, Delorem, Hornbeck, Amet, like the crew from Refresh again. Like that'd be
Yeah.
sick. But everybody likes, like, look at Phil's stuff, that his new movie that just came out. Like he film, like Brady Films, he edits it the way he wants with this unique flavor, this unique style that like he never had that directorial producing role. It
Mhm.
just would, he'd maybe pick a song, but like he didn't have a full say. And like all these people are so creative in the industry that it's awesome to see them be able to like showcase their personality and their creativity in the videos a little bit more by taking ownership of it.
So basically, for you, um, was there a want to be more involved in the direction side, or it was really the producing side?
Probably more in the producing side. Like I definitely sit as a little bit of a director role, but it was more so for me. The way we would describe production in like a TV realm is like where we go, what locations we're shooting, how, not less what the angle is going to be,
Hmm.
less how it's going to be compiled. And for me, it was more about having a say in my travel schedule, the people we shot with, and where we went. So more of a producer role. But like me and AJ still to this day on this current movie, like, you know, I'm watching footage, I'm picking out shots, like, but it's more just me having a creative say on the skiing side where he's directing the whole film. I'm not a director. I don't want to tell you where to stand. You know the film side better than me, but like, this is what I'm going to do. What do you think makes this trick on this urban spot look the best? And that camaraderie and that conversation is more than I feel like I used to have. I could have maybe had that kind of a say back in the day, but like I wasn't in the space or hadn't filmed enough to like be confident in that. Now it's like we're like a team in it. Like, I don't know, you think the wide would look good? Like this trick's kind of lame, but the rail looks cool. Maybe the wide would make it look better or bigger. And it's really fun to have like the whole thing be a bit more teamwork rather than maybe back in the day it was like, I'm going to do this, just film it. And I like didn't care how it was filmed because I was trying to do 4 freaking switch ups on some rail instead of like finding a unique shot. It was less about, it was more about the skiing for me. And now it's so much more about like, well, how's the skiing look, or what's the ski trick, but how's it going to look? Is it going to
Hmm.
look cool, gnarly, unique, special? Like, how do we make everything look special? So more producing, but like I still sit a little bit helpful as a director, but AJ for sure now is the full-time director still.
Yeah, and I think that's something really cool about you two. You and AJ Dakoulas go way back. Your
Yep.
first official, I guess, film presence was with 4x9, and
Yep.
that's 2007. And
Yep.
you've not always filmed with him every year, or maybe you have, but like that might be one of, if not the longest skier filmer, standing relationship in free
Partnerships
skiing.
or
Yeah.
relationship. 16 years going on, at least 16 years. And maybe not every year we've filmed a part or a movie, but there's no way we haven't filmed at least like a clip for YouTube or Instagram or something like every season since 2006. It's like, that's crazy to think.
Do you ever talk about that? Like, let's say this year rolling in 2023, hey, AJ, we're doing another good company. Do you ever like sit at a spot sledding and be like, hey, remember when we were 18? A lot of people move on to other stuff, you know?
Oh yeah.
You've seen people come and go, and then you're like, hey, AJ, we're still here.
I think it's usually like when Tucker, who's a lot younger than me, Tucker Fitzsimons, is like down to hit another rail or something, and it's already 10 o'clock at night, and me and AJ like look at the rail he's thinking of, and we're like, dude, maybe in 2007 this would be cool. Let's go home and get some sleep. Like, we have these moments where like somebody's a little bit more motivated for something. We're like, dude, that's not cool. Like, I've shot 30 of me and AJ have personally shot 100 down rails together. Like, we're not hitting that, and we gotta like big dog him a little bit because his hunger is better than ours, which helps bring us up to like do more, get more after it. But like, we'll look at each other and be like, how many of these have we shot together? Like, we're not doing this. How are you going to film it? What trick am I going to do? We filmed every trick that's possible on a down rail in the city. Like, not necessarily true, but like, we just joke about it in that regard. And we'll have those moments where like, this is crazy. Like, we just finished filming something at 2 a.m. We're drinking a beer afterward. Like, how are we still doing this? We're both 36. Like, what are we doing? Or we get kicked out. When you get kicked out by a cop as a 36-year-old, it is embarrassing. Like, the cops are younger than me now, and they're calling me sport. And what are you kids doing tonight? It's like, man, I'm not a kid. I'm older than you. Like, come on. You could say, what are you guys up to? But like, don't call me a kid. You're like 28. I'm 36. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
funny.
a bit younger than you, but I've had the same feeling. Um, but I guess I feel more confident now that when people approach me, because they don't see you as a teenager anymore, and teenager maybe
Yeah.
means trouble. So they see an adult, and you're like, "Hello, can I help you? Can I answer some
Yeah.
questions?"
Yeah, we look a lot better if you've got the appropriate, really high quality film gear. You're wearing outerwear, not like four tall tees. You're not all drinking beers. Like, if you look like a production, they're like, okay, what's going on here, sir? Rather than like, whoa, 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 what are you guys destroying? It's like,
Yeah.
you look a lot better and presentable nowadays than we probably did in the 4x9 days. So, like, and I've had so much experience talking to cops that now I'm like, okay, here we go. Time to lay on the charm. What can I say this time? And it works more often than not. If you're kind, respectful, explain what you're doing, drop some sort of X Games line or professional line, clean everything up, and you drop all the right stuff, you can get away with more stuff rather than being the people we were back in the day, like, just like, yo, we're doing this, bro. What up? Like, if you talk to people in the right way, you can get away with a lot more.
Yeah, and especially you say, "Hey, this, hi sir, this is Tom from the Olympics on NBC."
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot better ways to approach it. It's still really fun. That the thing people ask me a lot too, like, why do you still hit urban? Or like, I mean, all of our movie this year for the most part is backcountry other than two segments of urban, but like, for some reason every year in December I'm like drawn to that. Like, that whole experience is so much more unique than anything else in skiing. Like, driving around a city, finding something, making it work all on your own, like, it's just so cool. Like, you never know what you're going to find around the next corner. And
Mhm.
that is still so enticing to me. Like, what's the rail going to be? Could it be something I've never seen before? Like, it's so much more work and way more fun to just ski powder every day. Why aren't you
Mhm.
doing that? It's like, there's something about it, that itch to find that one more thing or that one unique spot to do a trick you've never done is like so much more approachable than in the backcountry. Like, you need so many perfect conditions in the backcountry to do something where it's like, it could be raining, foggy, nighttime, doesn't matter. And you can still do a rail that like you've never done and accomplish something. And that's really cool.
As you just mentioned a couple minutes ago, as you get older and you do more, you do get more picky because it's just the natural way of things. Once you've done every trick in the imaginable on the down rail, then when you see one, you might skip it because you want to do something special. So, how picky have you gotten in the streets? Uh, is Do you come in with tricks in mind, with special features you're looking for? Or are you just open to whatever and then you let your grumpy old men come into play sometimes?
I'm kind of open to whatever, and I think it really helps me to have. I'm a bit jaded, and I'm always looking for like. To me, the spots are the most unique part of urban, like finding the weird or the cool looking rail, wall, ledge, whatever. So I'm always looking too much, and having somebody like Tucker around to like say, that's really good still. Like we should just hit it and see if we can get something. Then I have to think outside the box on trick, which is really helpful. And the same with Colby filming backcountry. Like I'm so picky still about what jumps I want to hit or what I want to ski. And he's like, no, he's so good at skiing. Like, we're going to get something on that. And then I end up like being forced into trying it, even though it's not that special. And we get something we're really stoked on. I'm like, thank you. Like, just surrounding yourself with that, like, younger eyes and that younger vision for like, I don't care if it's not perfect. We can make something unique and special by doing something still, where I feel like I've done every trick. There's still so many more tricks. You just need somebody with a different perspective, or at least like a more hungry, go get it, try something scarier that maybe you don't want to try attitude. And so it was great having Tucker with us on Urban, and Colby for the backcountry stuff is just so go get it. So nothing's impossible. It's just really fun to be surrounded by those guys to like, otherwise, I mean, my segment would be a couple clips shorter and only special things and probably not as good because I wouldn't have tried to hit something because I was like, that's not cool enough. Like you get jaded, and having those kids around really helps me not be so jaded.
You got the two good hungry boys with Tucker in the streets and Colby in the backcountry.
It's
That's a good.
exhausting. It's exhausting to keep up with those two. I'll tell you that much.
So before going into crescendo, just wanted to give a little run back of Good Company since we talked about its birth. So in 2015, you did two short films in one season, right? One and
Yep.
two, they were called. Then 2015, no, sorry. Then in 2016, full movie called Vice Versa. 2017, full movie called Guest List. Then 2018, Knee Injury, You're Out. 2019, Cruise Control, full POW movie from your return. 2021, Fresh Squeezed. And then now 2023, Crescendo. There's
It's
a
a lot.
That's a dude. You've been productive.
I feel like we just started Good Company a year or two ago, but yeah, now when you say it, it's been 8 years, whatever, six, five full length movies, webisodes. It's like, oh my God, I've been doing this too long.
There's also Baltic Ski that I didn't mention from 2017 that I rewatched, and
Oh yeah.
it was dope. Where you guys kind of went with a concept of, was it Finland?
Yeah, we went to Finland and then over to Sweden with the whole premise of like taking public transport to go hit urban. And it's like something I love and respect so much about like the new age of like swerve skiing and messing around and picnic tables and just that kind of grimy urban stuff is like the approachability. And I was like, well, I'm not necessarily going to do a butter across a picnic table, but like we can show that like this part of skiing is so accessible that like you need a bus ticket and some old beat up skis and you can go do it. And that was really cool for us to do that year. There's been, yeah, all those little one off projects in the midst too, from like the year we did the world record rail to the year we did Baltic ski. And then we made a video for GoPro the year I tore my ACL in 18, and like just so many other little production things that come out of that Good Company sphere that maybe aren't Good Company or like movies, but like AJ and Kyle directing, me producing, us doing content. Like it's just been so long and so many different things.
We are now in 2023. There's kind of a new wave of film companies like Good Company, and then all the ones from when you got in are out now.
I mean, yeah, it's weird. I tell you what, after 8 years of it, like the production and the fundraising and everything is like a lot of effort. Like I miss those days almost now of like, oh, there's a heli trip or a cat ski trip. That sounds great. Just put me on it. I don't want to plan anything. Like now, after you do it for so long, But I guess like I think the reason we kind of survive is that it's just so much smaller scale. Like to do a TGR movie or what level one movies used to be, and to make an hour long movie with 15 riders and do a premiere tour, like you need a team of people supporting that, fundraising for it, planning it. And there's just like so much logistics that like the reason we still even exist is like it's just a small crew. It's me, AJ, Tom Yaps, my agent, and our, producer, like doing it. And then like Colby being a planner and being part of the production this year. But it's like just people taking initiative and it not being so big of a scale. Like
Mm-hmm.
you just can't do that nowadays unless you're TGR or MSP. Like a 20-person film, like no way. Orchestrating all that would be such a headache. So like we're only still around because we're really not like a big production company. Like we're just a couple of guys and then the friends that go out with them. So it's a little bit easier to manage that.
Yeah. I think a big part of why, and you tell me because you were part of that, but it seemed like a big part of guys going on to do solo projects was like, hey, my sponsor is paying a company X amount. Instead, can I just use it and make my own stuff? But I think there was a big part of underestimating just how much orchestrating work was behind the scene for the companies to make that full movie happen, for the logistics, for the premieres, for everything other than just like being at the street spot.
Yeah, there's so much more. And you think about it, like the younger kids now that have these project budgets, or even me that have project budgets, it's like, yeah, you might have some money to go to a movie, but it only works when everybody's little bit of funding goes to one thing and there's enough to pay a filmer and a crew for the whole year. Like it's hard for one athlete to make a solo project because whatever your funding is, like you can't realistically pay somebody well to make that film then, because you need a couple of sponsors that are high paying to make it happen. So like I get why it worked better with like everybody's funding together, but it's just everybody wants more ownership and they want to be able nowadays to share everything on social and to have that content to give to their sponsors. And that's where the old format was a little messed up. It was like behind a paywall, everything. So like if you had a couple bangers in whatever movie it was, you couldn't use them on your Instagram account in 2012. They needed to stay behind that paywall to enable kids to buy that movie to enjoy it, so that the film then was profitable. Where now it's like when you take ownership of it, Phil Casabon's new movie, like any of the clips in there, he owns, he can put out, he can give to Monster Energy or to Armada. And then like that's just building up him more as an athlete and a character, rather than it used to be more about like the logo of the film company, keeping it not hidden, but keeping it behind some form of paywall for that company to actually turn a profit. And like, I miss the days like 4x9 back in the day. Like, we didn't sell a lot of DVDs, but like, you sell 1,000 DVDs at $30 a pop. That was a huge hit because we didn't have good sponsored like dollars, but like AJ and Andrew Napier were, they were making that's 30K right there. 30 at 1,000, 300 at 1,000. Like, that's a huge help to put food on the table to then go film a movie next year. So like, those paywall days are gone where like you make nothing off the movie putting it on YouTube nowadays, but it is so much more accessible and the athletes can make a star out of themselves a lot easier than they used to.
It's a good thing and a bad thing. Whereas you can, there's not the pay to play anymore, where you need a sponsor to pay a company to put you in, but it is also harder because you don't have that revenue stream. Whereas like for a good company, you're 100% dependent on the sponsors, right?
Oh yeah.
How hard is it, or what is it harder, or is it just different, like to make it
It,
happen?
it's just different and it is harder, I would say. But like the reason Crescendo even exists the way it does for this season is that Colby wanted to do a solo project. I wanted to do a solo project and Maggie wanted to do a solo project, or at least some sort of film. And we were all together at one point and we're like, well, we're all on Monster. We're all on Elevate brands like K2 line. Like, why don't we just like do it together so
Mm.
that we can like pool our funding? And it kind of takes us back to that old model where like alone, our funding is enough to maybe have a filmer scrape by all season. But together, we can have AJ direct, Colby's good buddy Jack, who filmed a ton of our movie with Colby, like get paid to film, and we can like have enough money pooled together to make something really good. And you can always do a solo project with it afterward, but like coming together with other stars like that, and me going together with them coming together with me, us putting all of our eggs in one basket just makes the funding possible for the music, for the travel, for the filmers. And like we kind of came back to that old model where like it's so fun to do a solo project till you realize like it's really expensive to like hire somebody. So that's why it like even came together this year.
And as you were saying before, with the whole transition from uh, team movies, let's say, many skiers to solo, and saying you wish, oh, I wish I would see everyone together again. Well, I think there's something cool to that where solo projects are nice and I like them, but sometimes it feels short where we'll get into crescendo. It's nice to have the whole 30-minute stuff building up, and then you get to the ender, and then there's actually a build up where you're hyped, and it's not
You
a
get to, would you say you get to the crescendo of the movie?
exactly, dude, on point.
No, I get it. Yeah, and I think all of us got so entranced by social and short form content that like the lost art of like rider based segments, which is still there, and I see it so much in like snowboard films, and it's nice to like do that again, to have segments and to have a couple people together and to work together. Like it's you need a little bit of both. There's too much short form content that taking some time to highly produce, highly direct, and well film something a little longer, I think is still so enjoyable. Like you can sit down and watch a 30-minute movie. If it's, an 8-minute web solo part, like I'm not going to put that on my TV. I'm probably going to just watch it on my phone or my computer. But it's nice
Mhm.
to have a little bit longer film that you're like, oh, this is a legit film. I should put it on the TV, get some popcorn or whatever, have dinner, and
Yeah.
then like enjoy it sitting down and take it all in rather than like consuming it directly on a small iPhone.
So let's get into crescendo. We just talked a bit about the producing, the struggles of making it happen. Let's talk about the good stuff. Congrats on another segment, bro.
Thank
It's,
you.
people see a 3 minute and we're so used to seeing you that, oh, it's like making a segment is not easy. It's not
No,
as if it just happens by mistake. So congrats on that. You got the opener in the movie. Um, we talked about it for a second with you doing a dub at 50. How is the body still handling putting out segments at 35?
it feels pretty good. I mean, honestly, the snow this year was so good. So filming backcountry is like exhausting on the body in terms of the sledding, the access, the building, everything. But like skiing, so much better. Like I landed on my head a couple times this year, and there's a couple crashes in the credits. Like, yeah, they hurt, but like nothing like crashing X Games slope style on a dub 12. You miss the set and land on your face. Like that's bone breaking crashes where like crashing into POW is really pleasant for the most part unless you tomahawk really hard. So it was good, and like just like such a good year in Utah, it made it really easy for us to film. Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, the surrounding states all had such good winters that it was just like not easy because it's still a lot of snow, a lot of AVI mitigation, a lot of sled and travel and where to go, weather forecast, but like staying within this realm and not having to fly somewhere is so nice. So we had a blast. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to do a count on the segment count. It's got to be 20 plus, but this one felt good. I was stoked to put a full backcountry part together and then also have a bunch of urban clips that maybe don't stand on their own as a full urban segment, but with other people. It was like really cool to still have a little bit of everything in there.
As we said a couple times before, relating to street, relating to comps, you're not looking to do a double 16 trying to die. You've
No,
you've done that enough. You're more particular about style, I'm guessing, and just making things look good. You're not 21 anymore. But
my whole segment, even the backcountry stuff, like it's not a trick that's unbelievably crazy that I did it. Where Colby's got some tricks where you're like, well, I've never seen that before. I'm like, I've found such a fascination with trying to land switch and trying to make backcountry skiing look like park skiing and make it look easy, that like that's my take on it. And I feel like not as many people do it nowadays. Like for how big switch landings were years ago to be like the first to do them into really fresh snow, it kind of like everybody does one to have one, but it's not a thing. So that became like my thing. And I'm just like, how do I make this backcountry jump look like a park jump? And because it's backcountry and it's really hard to land switch in deep snow, you can get away with making a nine look beautiful. Where like to impress the younger kids, the like 16, 18, 19 spinners, you got to do something crazy where it's like, you can impress everybody with like a zero spin. That's still really hard. It's
Yeah.
cool. I like it. Spin less, style more.
I'm not going into the movie expecting you to blow my mind because you're 36 and you've always done it. You've done it more than enough. So I'm like, I don't need you to do something never been done. I just want to appreciate Wallisch. But then when we do see, guys like Phil or guys like you still doing stuff we've never seen from you, it's nice. Like there's a shot where you do kind of a nollie or like nose press misty five off a cliff. I was like, oh shit, that's some new stuff. Let's go.
Yeah, just something different. And that's where like my head's at with that stuff. I'm like inspired by other people and the younger generation and some of that different types of skiing. I mean, that's an ode to Phil basically, and like the use of the whole ski, and like this is like kind of a lame little step down cliff, but what can I do? How can we shoot it that I can do something I've never done before that's a little different? And then you just come up with something from watching other content and from
Mhm.
like I had never done that trick in the park really or anything. It's just like, this is kind of lame. It's not that big. It's kind of snowy out. Let's get weird. And I was like, even up there, like, do I do the little nollie nose press thing? Or I was going to do like a weird Tokyo drift slide flip. I was like, just getting weird. Like, just, and that's to me what like keeps skiing interesting, even at the small scale. Like, it might just be a Misty Five, but like, it's that one little bit of flavor and spice added to it that makes it exciting for me to do a trick. I've probably done a million Misty Fives in my life, but never done one like that. So it's like that little extra that's really cool to keep trying to find year after year.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, at least for me as a viewer, sometimes uh, a cliff or jump that is not that big, I don't care. If you're putting that little spice, you got me.
Yeah, it's all about the flavor and sprinkle it on.
Yeah. And another one that was a highlight to me, big shout out. That was sick. But my question was it on purpose? You got a big switch Misty 9 blunt with a fucking tree tap in it. Dude, that's dope.
I'll meet you in the middle. It wasn't entirely on purpose, but it wasn't not on purpose. So like I was going toward that tree and I was like maybe I'll tap that tree, but the pop was like more. I did not expect that amount of tap. There's like a bunch of snow that flies
Yeah, you
off,
wrecked it.
and I was like, oh, if I like, I, I'll come around, and I knew my tips would be facing that way, and I was like, if I hit the tree, that's pretty cool, but like if I don't get to it, that's at least where the fresh landing was on the jump. But like in the air when it happened, I was like, you can hear it kind of on the GoPro. I go, oh shit. Or like, I'm like, whoa. Cause like I did not mean to slam the tips into them. But that's the kind of stuff where I'm just like diving that way anyway. And I'm like, it's there. And it's just funny that like it worked out so well, where that's like probably my favorite clip on that jump session of the three I have in there. And it was like the last one I did, and it was just kind of like, oh, no one wants to hit it, I'm gonna hit it once or twice more. I'm thinking about something, and like then it's always that little extra that you put in, that extra time, or try one more thing that ends up being like, I was just hyped to do the switch dub nine because the jump wasn't that big, and I was like, oh, that was fun. I haven't done one in a couple, like a month or two. That was fun just to go upside down twice. Then I did a double front flip as a joke, and then just did that one. I was like, that was way cooler. I should have started with that. Like I should have tried all day for that, but because I was already like in such a good mode of landing stuff, that one just worked out. But that one was, I'll give you like 60-40, 60 on purpose, 40 accidental for how much the impact was.
Yeah, because taps are always good. As long as you tap it, we're
Yeah.
sold. But that was not a tap. That was like wrecking it. Like it reminded me
Slam.
of a Mets shot in I Trip. I don't know if you remember. He has a straight air where he just destroys a branch.
Oh, yeah.
He likes
I
goes straight.
remember.
I almost had that vibe where like, oh dude, it's a dope shot.
Because if you hit your tips too much, then the rotation stops and you're just flipping into the landing an opposite way. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh my God, I came around. I was like, I can't believe that worked. And at the bottom, everybody was like, you slammed that thing. And I was like, I know. Like, if I had popped more right, I could have gotten really hurt. Like, I was going too close to the tree, but sometimes you just get lucky.
dude. Anyways, that's a banger. That felt good to see.
Thank you.
And talking about taps, there's also another one. And again, seeing those shots, um, it really felt like you accomplished what you mentioned a bit before, like making it look like your skiing park. Because
Yeah.
before in the segment, you have a cork 9 blunt that's like, it looks like you're in Park City, like
Yeah.
perfect cork 9 blunt. And then the shot I'm going to is you have another tap where you do a switch cork sev Japan, and you end up with a tail tap as if you're doing it in the park and like tail tapping the knuckle before finishing it. And again, I was like, okay, well, is he onto something there, or is he just like super lucky this season?
I'll tell you what, the Switch 7 Japan is luck. That one was complete luck. I did not want to hit that little tree, but the Switch 9, I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
It was there, and it just works out. These are the things that just work out. It's when I do really appreciate, though, on those ones where you tap, like, that you are accentuating it. Like, if you do it, it's really cool to see. Like, that one, I'm doing less of it. The 9 is, like, really purposeful where the skis are, but, like, if you just hit something, it's not as crazy. I love seeing someone have to stretch a little bit for it
Hmm.
and then get it, because then you're like, oh yeah, they know it's there. You know where your air awareness is. Like, there's something really cool about that.
Thanks for the honesty. But as a viewer who doesn't know the purposefulness or not, both are so sick.
Just yeah, it's just a little bit more spice. I mean, something added to it, and that's
Yeah.
like even finding that stuff in the backcountry. Like, it's hard to find the tree that works out and where it
Hmm.
sits, and you don't want to hit trees or you don't want to. But like a Switch 9, you'd be like, oh, that was a cool Switch Misty 9. But like, it's a way for me to still get away with, not get away with, but to do a Switch Misty 9 that has somebody like stop for a second and rewatch it rather than like, oh yeah, you did a Switch Misty 9. Like, how many of those has he done over the years? But like, that little extra bit is just the stuff that keeps me coming back and going out searching. Same with urban. Like, you never know where that next thing's going to line up where it finally works for something to add that flavor.
It's a good thing that you mention it. The fact of having everything aligned for the setup to be done, because you need a perfect terrain to have your in run and to have the spot to build your jump and then have the landing and then have the tree in their way. So it must be a lot of sledding around, looking around, and you know,
So
finding
much.
almost as just like in the streets, but it seems like even more constraints almost.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so finite with what you can do with snow in the backcountry, where like in the streets, you can find a sculpture, any feature. If there's snow around, you could work for 2 days and make it happen. Like in the backcountry, like if it works, it works. You can only do so much building. You can't change the landing. Like, the landing's there. It needs to be fresh snow. So like in the streets, oh, that's a huge rail. Like, we could build a huge landing. So in the streets, you're able to build the jump, the sides, the landing. You custom the whole thing. Where in the backcountry, like, we can build the jump, make something happen, or build an in run or whatever, but the landing's got to be there. If there's no landing, if it doesn't line up, it doesn't line up. You can't change it. But I'll tell you what, scoping backcountry by driving a snowmobile around on deep powder is a lot more fun than driving a truck around in minus 10-degree weather looking for a rail, like listening to a podcast like us. Like, it's so nice just we're driving sleds around in the PAL. Like scoping is a lot more enjoyable when what we're doing to scope is what people do as a hobby. Like people just go snowmobiling. Like that is a fun Saturday for them. And that's us trying to find something to ski. So it's pretty enjoyable.
To go back on your point about building in the streets, there's also that thing where you're kind of on a clock, where for
Yeah.
PAL, if the snow is good for your landing, you don't want to land on bad snow. You need good snow. Whereas in the streets, whatever snow there is, you'll chunk it up, you'll make a good landing, you'll deal with it. Whereas in the PAL, how much is are you like on a clock where you're going out saying like, okay, the snow is good. There's gonna be something in 4 days according to weather. We need to get shit done.
Yeah, so much. That was the biggest stress point this year. Like, you can tell in our movie how much it snowed in Utah, but like, you could probably count on two hands how many shots there are where it's full blue. Like, it was never sunny. So, like, filming was really hard. And if it is sunny and you're not filming a jump or doing something really good when it's sunny, you're missing it because it's gonna snow tomorrow. It's gonna be overcast. It was like, that's what I love about the streets is that the weather, like, yeah, beautiful sunny day, that looks great. But a rainy, overcast day also looks fine. Like, you can't shoot POW when it's overcast and raining. Like, there's just so much variables with the weather that, like, you're on the clock where, like, even in our movie, like, Tucker does a trick that took all afternoon. Then we just lit the rail up and he kept trying it. If you're in the backcountry and you're like, oh, the jump's not quite done, we'll do it in a couple hours. You can't. If you don't finish it and it's going to be bad tomorrow, then you just don't get a chance. So there's so much more of a time frame where it's like, you got to get it. Like every jump counts, which I do love. It reminds me of contest days. Like the landing will be gone after all three of us hit it a couple of times. Urban, I'm going to warm up. I'm going to hit it straight 10 times. Then I'll hit it this way. Like, there's just something about like the backcountry, like this hit, first hit on this jump could be like the only good one. Like something about that pressure of each thing that really is cool.
In the streets, as you said, there's a big range. You could get your it could be a gnarly spot that you hit 3 times and you get your thing and you move out. It could be a battle where you hit it 100 times. What would you say is the range in the backcountry? What would you say, like, let's say you do a super good zero first try and you maybe move out. So like, let's say the minimum is 1, but what's the max that you did this season until you say like, okay, it's enough, let's move on?
I mean, realistically, it's probably always less than, I want to say, 5 to 7 hits at the most. If you're hitting something by yourself, like if no one else is interested, maybe like you can hit something a little bit more than that. But like usually the landing just gets bomb holed or somebody falls or that you miss POW and like you could keep hitting something and keep doing tricks, but like the look and the aesthetics that we like and that we want is you landing in snow that's fresh enough to be like hard to land switch, hard to land in because it's not a park landing. So like the most I probably ever hit a backcountry jump is that one that I do the switch 9 tap on, and that was probably I hit 5 times, six
Really?
times. Like you just don't get that many, and I'm hitting it with Tim Mcchesney and Thane Rich, so we're like all taking turns, so the landing just goes away quicker. So you really just like you could hit it more, but like the shot's not going to be as good. Me doing that tap and landing in fresh snow, if I just kept doing it, it was like a bomb hole and I was landing all like bobbled, it just wouldn't be as good of a shot for us. So like, yeah, the hits are way less, but yeah, the least amount is one. Like the switch backflip off the cliff that ends my segment was just a one and done. Stepped it out, one hit, never hit it again. But like,
Dude.
there's not like that many times that happens. It's the dream for it to happen, but most of the time, even if it happens, you just keep hitting the jump, even if it's just for fun.
Hmm. But you're right that I never thought of it that way. Like I knew it wasn't a lot of hits, but it really must bring back some type of comp skiing to your mind where it's like, well, we spent a whole day looking, a whole day building. Now I have 4 hits. Don't fuck
Yeah,
this up.
you really don't want to. I mean, and if you do, that was a whole day building, a whole day filming, so much gas, sledding, time, food. Like is so much work that like when you mess it up, it is like a debilitating loss. Like you are crushed. But like a lot of the times you'll see like the first hits on any of these things aren't the hardest trick. You do like land something, you're like, ah, well, I got a switch 5 on the jump. Like even if I fall on the switch dub 9, at least I have something. And like you never think about that as much in like street filming. You're like, well, I straight slid this down rail, but like you're never going to use that shot unless you do the
Hmm.
harder trick. Like
Yeah.
you don't have a fallback. I mean, some rails you do, but yeah, it is funny to some people don't realize like it's not unlimited hits out there. If you like had a crew building jumps for you and you just hit them by yourself, you could hit it 10 times, but we do this all as a team and then everybody gets a try and we
Hmm.
alternate your hit, then my hit, then his hit, then start over. So it is just hard to get it before it's gone. It's a little high pressure.
And again, it's really like in the comps where you do your run, the other one does his run. You got to wait for 20 minutes until you go back for your run.
And if they do a good trick, you're like, well, my trick that I did kind of looks like shit compared to how good that one was. Now I got to up the ante. Like we're all so close and friends that it's like it's good, but it's like, damn, you stepped up to that. Like, okay, if you're doing a 10, I got to try like a bigger spin. Like it's fun little competitive battles.
Yeah. And sometimes in the streets, maybe it's different for you, but for us, it happens that there's many people hitting a spot. Let's say two guys hitting us the same spot, but we say, you go first, take the time it
Yeah.
needs to get your shot, and then we'll switch. Just so once a skier is in the mood, he gets going and it's not, distracting. Not distracting, but you know what I mean. Um,
So you can focus on what you're doing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But you can't really do that in the PAL because what if you trash the landing? Then the other guy's like, well, thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I guess I won't hit it. Yeah, you can't. I mean, and we do the same thing in the streets, depending on the feature. Like, if it's a feature that's like a rail that we know we're trying different tricks and it's natural speed, we're hitting it together. But if it's like something winch or a hard feature or tech, it's like we might get kicked out. You just try to get it if there's time, then I'll try to get it. We need to get something, and it's like a team vibe. But yeah, you can't really just one off session something till you get your shot in the backcountry because it would be like ruined. Or
Yeah.
you'd get it really quick, and then somebody else has more time to try something harder and better, and you're like, I want another hit now that you're doing something crazier.
You talked about something. You talked about not landing your trick in the POW, and that's like debilitating. That you're like, fuck, I
Oh my
wasted so
god,
much time. Uh,
so much
I
time.
I saw at IF3. I don't know if it'll be out when we release this episode, but I'll keep it brief. Jakob Wester has a new movie that is solely filmed by hiking. There's no helicopters. Like it's Big Mountain, and he hikes everything. So
Everything.
there, and there's a shot that's so funny where you see him hike a big, big line, like AK style, huge. He hikes it, and then there's the POV. He does his line, goes for a kind of a spine, tries a trick, and almost lands it, but tumbles. And then
And
you
he's
see, you
pissed.
yeah, you see his reaction, and he's like, "I'm not hiking that up," because like with his concept, he would need to hike it all up again, and he's like, "Fuck." I had one shot, and you kind of understand like the whole not the pressure, but he spent the whole day hiking and he had one run. And if he doesn't get it, that's what happened. And he's like, oh well, okay, well, I guess I didn't get it.
Oh my god, yeah, it is like competition level stress, and it's like one shot that's less than any X Games you'll ever see. Like only one run, like and like you can go up again, I guess, but I'm sure it's hours of hiking and effort, and even like it's the same thing with us. Even when it's sled access, it's like so long and exhausting to get out there, and then like to set it all up, it's like when you mess it up, you're like, damn, well, that was a huge waste of time. I like
Hmm.
that the shot's still in there. That's a good look at like the personality and the like actual process behind it. I can't
Yeah,
wait to see that. That sounds cool. I love that he's still doing it and shooting it all together with his wife. Like it's really cool.
yeah. I love it, and I also find it funny. We're getting older, and I was watching it with a kid from the new generation, and I kind of realized that these guys are getting older. So I was like, "Hey, do you know who that is?" He's like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, I'll tell you about him after."
No
Because, like,
way.
well,
Yeah.
if someone's 19, they've never seen prime Jakob at X Games, you know.
No, I mean they were barely born probably when he was competing at X Games. So yeah, it is crazy to think the sport is old enough now that people that we looked up to that aren't even pioneers, like Jakob was a pioneer in his own time, but not like an originator of the sport. Like now there's a second generation of pioneers that these kids don't know.
A lot of things like that, like Andreas Hodveit, who kind of ghosted free skiing for a couple years, aside from his edits every now and then. But he really stopped.
Gone.
And then I'm sure there's some people who saw him winning unrealistic and were like, who is that guy?
Who is he? Yeah, I've never heard of him. He's 36 or 37 years old. Like who is this guy? That was so sick to see. He's such a legend. He's so good at rails.
Were you what was your reaction when you saw that he was competing, or maybe you didn't know, maybe you just saw it after the fact, like that he won?
No, I knew he was competing. We had talked beforehand because I was originally also planning to go to Jesper's event,
Mm.
and the timing didn't work out. I was going to a close friend's wedding, and I couldn't make the flights. Like I couldn't do it, and I was really bummed not to go to Aura for it. But we had talked beforehand because he was like, dude, are you going to this? I'm thinking about going, but like, I don't want to be the only old guy there. And I was like, dude, I think I'm going. Like, it'll be so fun to ski together again. Like, and he was sending me clips of things he was doing, and I was sending him clips, and we were kind of just like talking. So I knew he was going, and I was like, dude, he's gonna win. Like he's, or maybe not win. I was like, he's gonna crush this. This is so up his alley. And then I was bummed to not be there because the setup looked really fun. The weather looked kind of terrible, but like all the features looked so interesting and cool that I was really jealous of seeing all that. But like I've known he's still dialed on rails. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised to see anything. And then to see the result and to see like the highlights, I was like, yep, Andreas hasn't missed a beat. He's been training home mountain. Nobody knows, but he's been going hard. It was so cool. Like just to let everybody know, like I'm still here. Like you might be good at doing 1980s, but I'm still better than you at rails. I was like, no way. Andreas wins the event. So sick.
It must be, I don't know, you tell me, but it must be motivating seeing that you're not the only one who's still out there. Like you see Phil
Yeah,
who drops A plus street video, and then you see Andreas who goes in and wins a comp, and you're like, okay, well, we might be 35, but kind of that Tom Brady
doesn't
vibe. We're
matter.
not done yet.
Age is just a number. I mean, even just Henrik still like his years competing once he was over 30, it's like it doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, it does, it is harder, but like if you work at it and you have that like backlog of skill set and practice and experience, like there's so many things too with like street and backcountry that you learn over time. Like kids get hurt because they don't know you can put snow somewhere to protect yourself. It's like
Mhm.
take a little bit more time to set up the spot and you'll get your trick easier. And all these little things that you find out over time are just like advantages in the long run.
You might go for broke, as you said, on the streets, but if you want to get a full segment, you need to stay. You can't break a rib at the third spot of the season. You need to
No,
stay on track. And again, talking about you staying, keep producing, not producing, not the right word, but you keep making segments in the street segment. There's a shot where you do a rail that LJ did back in the days, I think, a down,
yeah,
flat down elbow rail that has the flat is kind of higher than the rest. So you got to pop a weird
why?
rail, but you
Yeah,
do a switch lip on to switch. It's not, it's not a crazy trick if you just put it on paper, but dude, just the classic Wallisch style that you do on that, you could do it at 68 and I'll still be like, oh, fuck yeah.
hell yeah, yeah. I was that rail is it sucks. I mean, the fact that LJ hit it in the summer basically with import snow and like fell off to those stairs that elbow in and send you in the other rail, like so gnarly. But like, yeah, it's still that stuff to me. Like you're saying, on paper, there's a lot of switch lips to switch done in the streets. I've done a ton myself. Like but that one was still really hard and really fun for me because the rail was something I've never hit and it was a battle. But in the end, the shot is it's just a zero spin. I go to switch down a rail. Like who cares? But like something about like keeping the hands at your side and like landing the right way is still just so enjoyable. And that was a battle. It took 40 tries or something because it's hard to commit. But it was just like in the end, that battle for something is always still rewarding.
Hmm. For sure. And again, as you said, it's not a park rail. Even if it's a switch to
No,
switch, it's still a battle. It's not as if any street rail, there's no street rail that are easy.
no.
There's always something behind it. So, there's always that thing that we got to keep in mind.
Our favorite thing to joke about with our crew is like what people say they're going to do on a rail before they actually set it up. Like you see an urban rail and you're like, oh, this thing would be perfect for a 3-swap. And then you hit it and you're like, might be sick just to straight slide it. Like it's pretty scary. Like the trick claim before you actually hit something is always so outrageous because you're picturing the shape of the rail and what you would do if it was skirted in a park, or
Hmm.
you're thinking what you're capable of. And yeah, that's maybe possible, but you're going to take some serious hits to get to that level on a street rail. So like
Yeah.
every trick you claim, just scale it back like half as much. And that's what you're going to end up maybe trying. Like it's
Yeah.
so funny.
And that's something as a filmer that I've learned to shut up about, being kind
Yep.
of being superstitious.
Mm.
Like as if you talk about it, you're kind of gonna jinx yourself. But it was so fun for me in the past 2 seasons filming with Matt Duff, because that kid is on such a level that I can actually tell him like, "Hey, you think that would work?" And he makes it work.
And
So it's like it's insane.
yeah, you're not actually putting crazy ideas into his head. It's actually possible ideas.
Going back to your segment, you mentioned it briefly, but you did a Dumont.
Yeah, I did. It was literally just a joke, a double front flip. Haven't done one in like 10 years. My buddy Tim, who was filming the wide angle there on the jump, always jokes about front flips or double front flips. And somehow it came into my head, and I had already done the switch dub 9, and there was landing to the right. Before I did the switch 9, I was like, I got a funny one. Like, I should just try a double front flip. And it was literally just a joke. I don't even know why it made the segment. It's just kind of funny.
But what do you think makes it a joke? Because I feel like there is that thing where it feels like a joke, or you mentioned it, so it's coming from somewhere. But there's also been
I
that
don't
thing with
know.
Parker White, who does front flips, and it kind of ends up being a joke. But also, it's a trick, and
It was
I'm
sick.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. I guess I don't know what makes it. It was just an internal or like an inside joke with us, but it's not like necessarily a joke trick. Just
from someone who's never done it and will never. Is it hard, or is it that's the joke? Is that it looks hard, but it's easy?
it's really easy. It's just intimidating or a little scary, but it is anything, especially into POW, double backflip and double front flip. Maybe not as much double front flip because of the forward rotation, but like double backflips into POW are definitely the absolute easiest double you could do. A double backflip is probably easier than a cork 7 sometimes
Hmm.
because rotation adds so much difficulty into the landing in snow,
Yeah,
where like straight over, you can backslap a double backflip and still ski out. If you
yeah,
backslap a cork 7 and your body's turning, you're going to tomahawk. So like even the double front flip is kind of a joke to me just because it's like a little aerialistic and a little old school, like the first double you would try rather than like a spinny double or a double cork or a spinny trick is just harder to come around perfect.
yeah.
But it's not a joke. I was still like a little scared. I hadn't done one. I've probably only done 2 double front flips in my life before that. Hadn't done one in like 10 years. So it was like scary, but I was also like, yeah, thinking assignment at the X Games, like, it's kind of funny though. You get to look in the middle, which is kind of fun. And I was like, I don't care. Let's do it.
It's sick. And last one for your segment that I noted that I was stoked on. Not that the other ones I'm not stoked on, but the highlights for me, the switch backy. That looks, again, maybe it's easy. You tell me. But my first thought watching it is that must be gnarly because it's kind of a blind trick,
Oh yeah,
especially in POW. And it's cool because again, it's your movie is really ski porn. There's not you interviewing, telling us about stuff, but there's that little gist where we see you after that and you're like, yo, that was fucking psycho.
It was crazy feeling. Like I've done some switch backflips for sure in my life, but like every trick you see in a ski movie that someone does off like a pat down, step down cliff that has no pop, like every trick is a little different than they normally do it. Like if you see Parker White do a cork seven off one of those, it's always like a different set because there's no lip. So those always are a little harder to figure out. And the whole time thinking about that trick, I was like, it would be really cool, but like without pop, like is it like a cliff? Like do I jump? Do I set? Do I just fall? Like knowing how to set the trick when they're like non-lip jumps is so weird because you never hit a park jump where there's no lip. It doesn't exist. So it's like really hard to know how to set your trick. And all I could think was I'm either going to jump and land on my head because I didn't set hard enough, or I thought for sure I was going to do a switch backflip, come around, be 20 feet off the ground, and then just like fall to my back. And I was like, how slow do you set it? Like figuring that out was like just luck. And it was so blind, but also you go blind, then you look back, and as soon as you see the landing, you can kind of like stretch. And it was like the craziest POW landing I've ever had because it was like, whoa, I'm coming down into it, and it just worked. And I've had like some other hits that take so long, and that one I was like, I was just surprised it worked. It was another one where it was like something we joked about. Me and Tim had made like a joke about like I wanted to do it. I was like, how sick would a switch backflip be? And he was like, I don't know. Like, you think you could just lay it out enough? And we like, I don't know if it'll work. And then eventually, like, just tried it. And I don't know. It's a weird ender. It's not like what you expect. It's not the biggest trick, but it's like a one hit and done, fresh snow, good landing. And just like the wide angle shot that you first see is like, whoa, what's he going to do off this cliff? Whoa, that's not what I thought was coming.
Yeah.
Just like a little different for me.
Yeah, and it makes some change from the usual, like you end your segment with like your dub, or it
Yeah. Like,
spices it
great.
up.
Yeah.
So that was one try, you got it, done deal.
Yep, stopped hitting the jump or didn't hit it again. Just one and done.
That's sick.
And but it's like it doesn't always work that way. And when it does, you're like, wow, it worked. Like I think I'm good. I watched the shot. I'm really hyped on the shot. Think I'm good. Like, and then I think the clip looks so good because it looks so fresh. Like if there were two tracks and maybe I did it differently or better, it's not as impressive. It's just when that landing is clean and you're the only mark in it, it's just so, to me at least, and I think to a lot of people that have tried to film a backcountry jumper, like the speed, the pop, the set, like everything is so hard to just guess correctly
Yeah.
that when it works, I think those are the best shots because it's like, oh my God, you literally did all the brain powered work and somehow just managed to like get it.
We talked about it, about how hard it is to get shots in the POW, how you don't have that much try before everything is the landing is too bad. Did it happen at all last season where like you actually take time to find a spot, build a booter, and you get your, like you said, your 5, 6, 7 tries and just end up getting nothing?
Yeah, it definitely happened. Not a ton that I can remember. The thing that happened to us a lot was building a jump, storm coming in, or like the weather going to crap, and then having a week long storm that like the jump's gone again. So, not as much like every shot. I didn't really have a jump session where I didn't get something. There's a lot of the clips where like I wanted more, like things where like I tried something harder and never got it. So what you see is the weakest of those attempts.
Right.
Like even there's a right nine in there that like I'm happy with, but I wanted to do it better and like the landing was kind of bad and the light was already terrible. But like our biggest fails all season were building a really big sick jump, maybe trying it once, then the light being terrible, and then it's snowing for a week and covering it with 4 feet of snow and it being gone. And
Mhm.
it's like we built that so long and we aren't even going to get a shot on it. It's like debilitatingly painful to like then you like kind of want to do it again, but also you're like, we already built it once. It's gone. It's filled in with snow. I don't want to build it again. Like, let's go do something else. Or like, I don't know. We had a couple of those fails this year, but more of the time, I got pretty lucky this year with no backcountry jumps that I got nothing on, I don't think. A couple that I just didn't hit because they were like not what I wanted to hit and let somebody else hit it, but nothing I tried something too bad where I failed and was left with nothing.
You mentioned it a couple times. That's another thing that I thought was super cool. Again, talking about you and AJ being friends and working together for so long. Um, the start of good company, that was like you wanting to be surrounded by your friends and by people you want to be with. Um, Another one that is in there is Tim Mcchesney, was also a super long time pro, also someone from your 4x9 days, level 1 days. How was it filming again with him? And again, he's a bit younger than you, but
Yeah.
he's also still crushing it in the POW. And it's also, I always find it kind of funny to see him in POW. He's good and all, but it's like I still have my image of like tall T McChesney in the streets doing the craziest
Yep.
stuff. So it's nice to see the transition.
The 4x9 gunny season segment, is it?
Yeah,
I think whatever the year he had the closer there, or like just him in the clown school edits from back in the day. But no,
yeah.
yeah, so fun. I mean, me and Tim go so far back, and he's like one of my closest friends to sled and stuff with. So it was really fun this year. Like, he filmed a lot with Faction as well. So he was on the road when we weren't together. But then we got a lot of good days, just me, him, and AJ, a couple days where some of that stuff, like the switch backflip, even at the end of my segment, is like Tim shooting the wide, AJ shooting the long, me hitting the feature. And we were
Mm.
just sledding together on like a 2 or 3 day trip. And it was like old 4x9 days, just the three of us, like tag team in the filming, AJ shooting, but like he gives us his extra camera and we shoot something. And we're like, good luck, buddy. And then I'll sled you back to the top. But it's really cool. He's really made like an awesome career in that like backcountry space as well, which I love watching. And like, we're just so comfortable filming together, sledding together on the same program. Like, so much of this stuff in the backcountry is like just being on the same program of like your risk tolerance, what you
Hmm.
want to go near, your avalanche danger tolerance, and your like opinions on what you want to hit. Like, we want to hit similar things, ski certain lines the same, or build the same certain jump. So it's like so nice to be with people that are on that same page. You don't have to talk about like, let's not sled near that face. Like, we just don't do it, or we say like, we'll just steer clear of that one, right? Yep. Like, just being on that same page of like where you're at in the backcountry and where the risks are is like, so, because that's like the biggest issue and the biggest fear out there is like being with the crew where somebody goes off and you're like, where are they going? That's not what I like to see. Like, it's
Hmm.
just like being on the same page is so nice.
Yeah, trusting someone because there is always that underlying risk.
Yeah. Which I love that about urban. You're never going to die in an avalanche skiing urban. And if you get hurt, hospital's like a 10-minute ambulance ride away. That's awesome.
And again, something that I think is really cool about Tim is the fact that he's had such a long career. Like, I first watched videos of his first video, like maybe season edit in 2008,
Yeah.
Park City Banger, and like he's still here in 2023, and he's never been an X Games guy. So like
No.
it's always harder, the more you get onto the big stages, you get
Bigger
bigger
sponsors.
sponsors, whatever that means. But he managed to do it. He could have been in real ski, no problem. But it feels like real ski were powder focused when he was still in the streets, and then they were street focused when he was in the
When he was in,
backcountry. So like
I
kind of a
know.
weird timing, but like in his prime, Mcchesney could have been
No doubt.
a real ski medalist, no doubt.
Yeah, and it is like you're saying, it is super impressive to have a 10-year career without like at least an X Games appearance. Like, we forget, yeah, Phil doesn't seem like an X Games guy now, but like he was an X Games guy. Like, he was a complete X Games comp guy. Like, before me, he was in X Games probably a year or two before I was even. Like, he's like an OG of the comp scene, and it does just make it that much easier to pick up an energy drink or a good relationship with different brands because you are such a star and recognized as a star once you hit that level that you can choose to go into the backcountry or film street. It's harder to make it as just a film athlete. So much harder.
Yeah. It gets you on a certain status with brands that helps you in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah. So big shout out to Tim. Always love seeing
Yeah.
him.
He'll love to hear that. He's living with me right now. Him and his girlfriend Britta are remodeling their house. So he's at
Nice.
work today, but yeah, he lives in the room right across from this office where we're filming this or recording this.
Another thing that I thought was really funny is you're 36. You're at an age where some of your friends may have kids that are in school. Like, there's some people have kids at 28, and if they're 35, then
Yeah.
the kid is, it's so funny. There's some shots in a segment with Walker Woodring. He's too young to sled on his own, I'm guessing.
Oh
And
yeah.
then there's
Not too
shots of
young, too small, too
too
small.
small,
Just
too small. Right.
it just doesn't weigh enough.
Then there's shots of, I don't know if it's you or Colby, but someone sledding with him,
It's
sitting
Colby.
in front of him. And dude, that's such a dad shot. It was so cool and funny. And that whole, it's cool to see him getting after it. It's cool to see him getting in the POW. It brought me back some vibes of, I don't remember the exact movie, but back in the days there was a movie. Was it Double Dubski 106, where there was Sean Pettit and Kai Peterson super young
Yeah.
with the
True.
midget song?
Yep. That's what movie it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Like
like,
putting the kids on.
yeah, that's what it felt to me, being like, hey kid, come on board, come see what the real stuff is like, because he's insane. He's a future, he's got on Red Bull,
Star.
he's incredible. But up to now we've only seen him in the park, so it's nice to like say, hey, come get out here.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, that was Colby sledding him around and just getting him out. And he's like really good in the POW already, like turns and good style. And like every foot of snow is a foot deeper when you're only like 4 feet tall. So the snow just looks so good. We had a day to ski Powder Mountain together this year, and he's like already trying stuff, skiing lines behind Colby, like such a talented little kid. And like, I mean, our joke about kids, it's like I ski with Walker, and I'm like, okay, he just turned 13. Like, I'm 36. Like, it's people have kids at 23 or 20.
He
Yeah,
could be your kid.
23. So like obviously he's not, but I'm like, wow, like I'm so old that this kid is like totally the age of what my kids would be if I was like a regular person that got married and had kids out of college. Like, that's nuts. Like, I'm so old. I'm 3 times older than him. And he's so good already. It's so cool to see like what the sport, like I had already won the X Games by the time he was born and like probably stopped competing. I probably haven't competed since he was born. Like, oh, it's crazy to see. And I love that. I mean, Colby especially, and then Walker, that next generation of that, like getting out of the park and finding like a film aspect or like the backcountry or street, whatever it is, finding something else to do in the sport rather than just compete, train, social media. Like, it's
Hmm.
really cool that Colby does it so much and has taken such a huge step into this space, and that like he's motivating. I like to think I motivated Colby when he was younger. Colby's that legend, that guy that Walker will look up
Yeah.
to keep this film aspect of our sport so alive and well. Like, yeah, Walker, if you go win an X Games, that's great. But you see what I did after I won an X Games? I went
Hmm.
out, I worked hard, made video content that I'm proud of, and then Walker can see like Colby's sponsor list and the success and the awards and the core industry loving and appreciating that, and then encourage him to like, whether it's backcountry, park, street, whatever he films, like, not that it has to be film, but that other aspect of the sport that is so much better, I think, marketing and advertising for products rather than just like using a set pair of skis in the X Games. Like, being able to do something on film that everybody aspires to do, that's what makes you buy that product. It's nobody buys Phil's skis because he did a switch bio 12 at the X Games. They buy it because of the way he skis on those skis when he's in charge of the filming. And same with Colby. Like, it's cool to see where Colby's gone with it and then where he's encouraging Walker to go with it.
Totally agree. And I think it's really special, the position he's in, Walker, where for a lot of kids, they kind of need to prove themselves in a specific spot, and then maybe they can branch off. What I mean is, like, say someone will break out in the comps, and once they have that status and everything, they'll be like, oh, I want to do a street project. I want to do, they branch off from a specific thing. Walker is at that spot where he's 13. He's
Could
got
do
a
anything.
big following, big sponsors, but he hasn't yet gone in a direction. He could still go anywhere. What, let's say if you're like sitting at a campfire or chilling with Walker, what's your tips for a kid like that that has like every opportunity almost, which can be maybe too much if you like can go in any direction?
I think my tip, especially at his age and with his level of enthusiasm for the sport, is to do it all. Like,
Hmm.
and to keep doing that, to keep saying yes. And I give this kind of tip or this sort of like, whatever advice to anybody. Like, don't say no to a trip ever. Like, even if you're not comfortable with heli skiing or, uh, filming street or going to a contest that you don't quite know that you'd be good at that age, like, it's all such good experience. Like, he can't win the X Games yet. Like, you just can't clear the jumps. So take this time to like say yes to everything and find you get so much more skill out of doing a little bit of every type of skiing, I think, rather than focusing. So, like, trying to get people to don't focus as much. Like, you don't have to be a slopestyle kid. Do it, but then also on the side, film with your friends. Go out with Colby in the backcountry, and that's so good. Like, the people that I think are doing the best job in the scene, people like Colby and Alex Hall, who like do a little bit of everything. They're not scared to say yes to anything. And there's a reason they're stars, especially in our country and worldwide. It's because they like do a little bit of everything and aren't scared to like try it, then get into that space, be good at it, conquer it, try something else. It's just like for him, it just, yeah, keep skiing the way you want to ski, keep posting stuff to social and pressing the world, and you'll find the space. Whether it's he wants to be a contest guy and go to the Olympics, great. Doesn't mean he can't on the side do something else.
That's we'll send that bit to him.
Yeah, I just hate that people specialize too much nowadays. Like, go
Yeah.
ride half pipe too. Like, all these kids are like, their parents are trying to convince them, oh, you're good at half pipe. You're going to be a half pipe skier. Like, that's too specialized. Like, go ski everything and you'll be a better half pipe skier or a better slope style skier. Like, our sport's gotten a little too soccer mommy and everybody wants everybody to be something. Like, be everything and then find that path.
Yeah, I totally agree with you where parents only see the medal opportunity and the really sports performance side, whereas to be a pro skier like you are making a living with sponsors, uh, it's not the biggest turn on for sponsors isn't someone who's solely focused on one thing. It's someone who can do it all. So like it's kind of a I totally agree with you there. And it's crazy with Walker that again with you saying like do it all, don't focus on one thing. There's some people focused on comms that blow up around 22 nowadays. So he's still almost 10 years. Like
Yeah.
he has time.
Oh, yeah. That's the big thing. And he's already got good sponsors. Like, the hardest thing is to be a really talented kid without sponsors and without like national team support at like 19, 20, 21 even. Like, it's really hard to get into a World Cup if you're just like really, really good, but no one knows you. But like Walker, you could not compete till 18 years old and you're still going to get a start in whatever World Cup because everybody's going to be like, oh, yeah, that kid, I've been seeing him. He's on Red Bull. He's so good. Whatever. It's like just find your way in it. Like, don't rush into that things. I say, and I worry about burnout with everybody. Like, you travel the world too much, too young. Like, is this sport still going to be fun? And I like say that I'm like, yeah, they're going to get burnt out. And then I'm like, shit, I'm the one that's 36 years old filming my 55th video part, and I'm not burned out. So I guess burnout's not really a thing for everybody.
Sometimes I've never talked to it directly to skiers, but sometimes I feel like some of the young ones seem burned out.
Yeah.
And you open a good door of like what do you think makes them burned out, or what do you think in the same sense like what didn't burn you out? Because at some point you were competing, you were filming 3 segments, you were the biggest star in free skiing. Some people take that positively. So for some others, it's the other way around. Like, what do you think makes the difference of being burnt out slash not?
I think for me, what I kind of see, and I've seen this with some of the younger kids competing, the people that aren't burnt out on it are the ones that do compete, do love competing, are on a national team, but also have a group of friends around them that maybe are sponsored, maybe aren't even sponsored, that like are religiously like die hard into the sport and just
Mm,
go do it for what it is. And like, it's the people you surround yourself with. Like, it's really easy to be burnt out if you're skiing contests, you're training tricks, and you're keeping up with your buddy on what they can do, and it loses its fun. So the reason I think I never got burnt out is when we were younger, like, yeah, I was competing, but when I came home, my friends, the 4x9 crew, when we would ski Park City, they were excited to try something, and then they're trying something which I was burnt out, didn't want to try something, but seeing the people around you motivated, hungry for something, wanting, pushing themselves, like if you're surrounded by people that are excited to go get it and excited to like learn and have fun in that process, it's hard to find yourself burnt out. But if you're surrounded by people on a team that it's about the next event, it's about the next triple cork, whatever. Like, you're gonna burn out on it. It's just surrounding yourself with like a good crew of people your age, your level of like not necessarily ski ability, but at least motivation and like enough ability to be on the same page as you.
yeah.
So it's the friend group, I think. And I give this advice to kids when they ask me like how do I make it or how do I learn everything, and I'm like, the first thing you need to do is befriend people at your local resort. Like, you need to have a crew, and you'll make the best day of anything. Like, no one wants to ski when it's terrible weather, but if the five of you decided to go that day, you're going to hike a down rail and try some Andy Perry hippie killers or something stupid. Like, just because you're all together, and then it's fun. And that's one more day where you're one more day ahead of the other peer of yours that didn't practice that day. But like, it's being able to make the most of every day that makes like that next kid the star. It's finding a crew of people, good crew of peers, and just staying motivated together.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think a big part of what made steps so special is every one of these skiers were super special, but the fact that they were all together, all pushing each other together, that's what made them what they are.
Yeah. And helping each other, like some of those spots and stuff, it's like that crew motivating to like do something bigger and better, and also like helping each other. Like, this is big, like you're going to do it, but we're all going to help film it the right way, shovel it the right way, fix the landing for you. And that's why it was so good. It was like very good teamwork for all those films they did.
And to your point of doing other stuff than the comps, I recently dropped an episode with A Hall this summer, and that's what he said. Exactly like you. He said, like, when I do a lot of comps, what helps me is then I go back home and I film with Hunter S. and Owen Dahlberg. And it's my group of friends or another group of friends. And, it kind of balances out everything.
Yeah, you're still skiing, and him filming urban isn't necessarily going to help him win the X Games, but him filming urban is still him finesse on his skis, learning balance, learning perfection on tricks, learning calculated risk, and saving a crash from not happening by like doing something. Like, there's so much added value, and if it's still motivating to go do it, just finding a way to still be on your skis when you're sick of being on your skis for contests, whether you just go ski PAL at the resort, like that's all still cross training for like the sport you want to do.
Yeah. Getting back to crescendo, you talked about it briefly. Well, not briefly. We talked about it a bit about going in the street still, finding spots, how to assess your tricks. Tell me about Tucker, because he's not someone who has the most out there personality. His speaking speaks for itself. Um,
Yeah.
but holy shit, he has a. You see a lot of inspiration from him. He's gotten a lot into the tap game recently, which reminds me of Will Wesson back in the days, who was
Mm-hmm.
really into like technical taps. I think his style has gotten better. Not that it was bad, but as you progress, you
Just
get better with that. Um, he has some, all his tricks are like kinky rails. He was really on a kinky mission this year.
yeah, at least in our film too. And he's got full segments in like the Line Skis daycare movie and probably other things. Like he filmed so much street, but yeah, he's kind of gotten to a great point now, I think, where so technical and so like very technically sound, but finally finding like a little bit more balance on what features to hit, what tricks to do, where to do a technical trick, where to do something a little bit more stylish, and
Hmm.
just so fun to watch and for me to ski with. We like ski very similar. Like we're both like tech stuff, but also creative when it calls for it and looking for features. And he's just so motivated that it's so fun to shoot with because anything could work. And me and AJ are talking him out of spots because we're like, no, we got to find something better. But like, he would just go skiing on everything, anything, which is
Hmm.
awesome for me to be around because like I said before, I get too picky. So it's so fun to have him, and he's like frustratingly good to ski urban with because like if we're hitting a feature together, like he's already thinking like 10 tricks ahead. Like I'm sure I was 10 years ago when I'd go on a street trip. I'd be annoying the shit out of the older guy that was on the trip. Like, of course you're going to 450 onto this double kink. Like, why? And I was like, because I'm trying to fuck shit up. I'm trying to be like the guy.
You're becoming Mike Hornbeck.
Yeah, that guy.
That reference is for the younger ones from After Dark, where you're on a Russia trip and you do a disaster 450 on, perfect hands in pocket, and you have Hornbeck, who's never been a spinny type of guy.
No.
He says like, what am I supposed to like? Was that sick? Am I supposed like what is? Anyways,
When am I supposed to cheer? Yeah.
yeah.
That's me with Tucker now. I mean, I'm still like a tech guy, but like I'm also not trying to do the craziest thing. I'm trying to find that like newer, weirder spot. So like such good balance though, and it's so fun to be with him because he's always go get him.
Yeah, that's
And
dope.
like you
And
said, I think he's really established his style. Like the taps, the landings, everything is more crisp and less like it's less not less technical, but he chooses the technicality and the spot selection is really
mhm,
good now.
yeah, sometimes you need to not go 100% for the tech. Like, let's say he has a lip 2 to switch on a kinky rail that's super clean. Like, don't go for the Pretz 2 and maybe overdo it. Keep it to switch and do it just real nice.
Properly. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I agree.
yeah. And one of my favorites from the movie is a four kink where he does a front switch up in the middle of the rail, and then at the end, Pretz 2 with a nose tap. And that's sick. That's like some good, let's go.
Yeah. Just that extra bit of flavor that like it doesn't necessarily look incredibly hard, but when you think through it, you're like, it's so precise
Mhm.
that it probably took so many tries to get it the way you want. And then the style is so good. It's like just so much more memorable than if he would have front two'd out without the tap. You'd be like, yeah, okay, front swap trick, like whatever. Like we've seen it, but like that just adds so much more memorable flavor to it.
Yeah. So big shout out Tucker. A lot of four kinks.
A lot of kink rails.
They like he does a switch tails too onto a big four kink rail. Like sometimes again we forget about it because he's so good and he makes it clean. But like those are battle rails, and adding a switch tails two onto that, that's not everyone that can make that.
No, no, that one was so insane too. He's got there is a lot of four kinks in the segments now that I think about it. A lot of kink rails in general. But yeah, he's so technically sound like that. I just expect him to get that switch two onto that quad kink in like, I don't know, 20 tries. Like it took 2 days worth of trying for the way he wanted it, but I almost expect it to happen immediately because he's so good.
And also big shout out to you because again, classic Wallisch style. Love to see you still in the streets. And there's just some dude. You're a beast with technical abilities. Like there's a long kinky rail. I don't know how much is it, but you do a K fed, and K feds. There's two ways of going about it. You can
They could
do
be really cool or really bad.
well. My point is You can either do a 450 out with a tap, which is like, you set your 450 out and your switch up is kind of just a tap, or you switch up, you slide, and then you do your 2 out. And that shot is so funny because you do your switch up at the beginning and then you slide, you slide, you slide, you slide, and then do a back 2 out like 60 feet later. And I love when I see those.
Yeah, I was, I mean, even doing that when I was like, K-Feds really aren't that cool anymore, but like this is a really fun rail to do a K-Fed on. This might be the coolest K-Fed I've ever done, and that rail itself was so good, like long kinked but rounded kinks, really smooth, and it was just such a fun session, and like still like something, yeah, I probably could have done in less tries 15 years ago, but it was still really enjoyable to do it there. That one was like a highlight of that trip was just sessioning that rail with Tucker and like just like sliding that rail was cool. Like I've never found a rail with such mellow, perfect kinks that starts flat. Like it's just finding those things. Like that was a really fun. Like I enjoyed filming that rail so
Yeah.
much because it was like a fun ride. It was safe. Like yeah, there's stairs, but it's so mellow. Like it was just really enjoyable to like. You'll never hit a rail like that in the park. So it was like
Mhm.
the only way to do it is to go out and find it.
Yeah, that's sick. And finally, for the street shots, you talked a lot about you being not less hungry, but in your crew, the hungry one is Tucker.
Yeah.
You've done it. You're not looking to kill yourself. You're not doing, looking for the beast of the century. Uh, Tucker ends his segment with like one hell of a shot. A beast rail that just doing straight is, you know, super
No.
hard, a battle rail. And then he does a 270 onto it. And you mentioned it briefly in the episode, but that was what you were referring to. In the movie, we see it's raining, we see the battle, and then we see it switching to night mode. So that tells us it was a lot of tries. And then, well, what I imagine is Tom is sitting aside. How much did you want to intervene, or what was your belief in him at that point, saying like, hey Tucker, maybe 270 on onto that beast is kind of too much?
No, you can never say no, but I'll tell you what, during that session, we like were shooting it during the day and I was like, well, we gotta like go get some food at least before we light it up. And of course we didn't. We just kept skiing. But I was shooting the lock off and then I stopped shooting the lock off angle and it just ran continuously because Tucker really needed the lip to not have ski tracks in it because he was getting like offline. So
Mm,
I spent 4 hours hand shaping the lip every lap. So it was perfect for him to do his 2 on. And like, yeah, I wanted him to get it sooner or wanted us to leave for sure. But like, you just know when someone's in the zone and they're excited, like it's going to be a banger when he gets it. So it was
yeah.
just like one of those things where we're just joking, just I'm trying to keep him motivated and positive and
Yeah.
yeah, it was just really fun to watch because I've been there. I've been that guy like where everyone's waiting. There was a year in refresh where I do that 270 onto that long four kink, the
Hmm.
Gagne quad, we call it in Utah,
Yeah.
and that Phil, Henrik, Decker, Berman, everybody's basically in the car staying warm and dry while I hike that thing 100 times till 4 in the morning or whatever. And it's like everybody's like just there, and you're like, fuck, there's so much pressure on me doing it. And I could tell Tucker's like, I'm sorry, dude, we'll get some food soon. I'm like, it's fine. Let's just get this. And like, it's so fun, even as not being the skier now, actually doing the like technical 270 onto a hard rail. It's like you're a part of it. When he gets it, like it's
Yeah.
such good crew vibes that it was really fun. That one took a while though. Probably not as long as mine did back in the day, but that one took a while. And it's like raining. It was awful out.
Yeah. And to me, at least from experiences with people doing 270 ons and doing kink rails, it's 270 on onto a kink rail like that seems like one of the hardest things because you're spinning on and you're kind of blind a bit when you do your 270 on. You're kind of looking at the top of the rail. And
For
as soon
sure.
as you would be good to look to the front, you eat that kink in the knees. So it's like kink rails with 270 ons are like it's a hard one.
Oh yeah. I mean anything where you lose sight of it too, like even his Tucker switch two onto the quad kink, like when you're about to land, you can lean back or forward based on where you think your momentum's going. With the
Yeah.
forward two, you just do it and you don't know if you're falling off one, you don't know which way to lean until you turn and hit that kink. So it's just pure like intuition and luck rather than like spotting down a line and like balancing regardless. So yeah, that one was, and it just like if you come around and catch the front edge and dive into that kink, like you're gonna get played on that one.
And then to end off the movie in some absolute monster fashion, you got the Colby segment. Holy fucking shit, dude. Like
Yeah,
that it gave me some Dane Tudor, prime Dane Tudor vibes. You
nice.
know, where, you know, Poor Boy segments around 2011, 2012,
Yeah,
2010, where it was like he had switch 12s in the backcountry, but also Alaska lines. And also, you know, like I love that when there's that, you know, there's the intro segment, there's a minute of banger Alaska
Alaska.
segments. So, and then it takes a break and you're like, okay, like where are we at that point? And then you're like, no, no, it's just beginning. You know, that's
So
so
sick.
sick. Yeah.
Yeah, he killed it this year. I mean, I just think about like you watch his segment and people will probably kind of forget that he also won X Games slopestyle, won the Dew Tour street style rail jam, and won Kings and Queens of Corbett's. So he was like on a tear while doing all this, skiing lines, skiing jumps. Like it's such an impressive season for the kid. Like so stoked and so proud of him. Like you know he's a good jumper, and like I almost expect when you see the segment to see like the switch 12 and the switch dubs and stuff, but like things that like blow me away are how capable he is in the big mountains, like how well he skis some of those lines and how he
Hmm.
makes it look like he skis it just as good as like Sammy would. And they were on that Alaska trip together, and he's like so dialed that he looks at home in those big mountains, and then also like still doing something I would never expect, like the nose butter 14 and the right nose butter 10. Like
Dude.
I would never like that's he I know he's a nose butter ish guy, but there's so many other tricks I would expect to see first that like his segment is a really good balance of like unexpected for him and for anybody in general, and then also like the type of skiing that I've never really like. We've seen him ski backcountry jumps, but like till I watched him in person a couple times this year, like fluidly and confidently ski lines with just a little bit of foresight, having seen it from the bottom, then immediately take it to the top and know where he was going. His ability to choose lines is like so second nature already. It's really impressive to watch him in person. He's like definitely the future of anything of that kind of realm for skiing.
Yeah. As much as he's dominant in comps, and I wish he continues for a long time because he's dope to see. I was seeing like a young Sammy, you know, as Sammy
Yeah,
was a Sammy won the X Games and he was a good comp guy. But at some point he said, yeah, fuck it. I'm fully backcountry mode. I was like, dude, if that guy dedicates 100% of his winter to that, holy.
like this was a big dedication. He did ski a lot this year, but like he also filmed other stuff, did all those competitions, did training camps. Like he missed weeks. If he just spent the whole season focused, it would be even crazier than this one. Like this is like not a half-assed effort by any means. He dedicated a lot of time, and it was a really good year. But like there were days left out there. Like give him a year of fully focused. I wouldn't even be a 3 song segment. It's already like a 7 song or 7 minute segment.
Yeah. Um, the both ways knows butter. Again, not that we need to repeat it, but just in case. He's not in Mammoth, springtime, having a whole day to maybe get it. As you said, there's under 10 hits. So right nose dub 10 and
10.
left
Yeah.
nose butt dub 14. Holy. It's nice to see someone in their prime get that kind of, you know, some people could dedicate their whole season and not get something close to that. Like that's someone who's on top of his art.
Yeah. And just so like so focused like I mean, maybe I'm misquoting, but I think the right nose butter 10 was first try at trying that trick ever, never doing it into POW or park and landed it. And that's the shot that's in the movie. And the 14 took like 4 or 5 tries and like some slams, but like he
Hmm.
just gets up and goes for it again. The dub 10 off the like sort of cliff that he does
Yeah.
was a 2 different days process, bailed it a bunch, let it re-snow, refill in, tried it again. Like there's just so much work behind the scenes. Like the kid did not stop this year. Like he was every day, go get them, stay as late as you could in the day, go up there when you can. He was late to our trailhead meetups a couple times. I was a half hour too early for Colby's time, but got to throw him under the bus a little bit. But like, never, there was like no days off for the fact that his shoulder was killing him all year and all these other little nagging injuries. Like,
Yeah.
he worked so hard and it was exhausting for me to be around. Awesome, but exhausting. He was absolutely on a tear.
Yeah, shout out to Colby. I don't think we'll spend too much time on this segment because we could go for an hour. But another
Oh,
highlight that
yeah.
I had is it's rare that we have back-to-back jumps in the backcountry.
Yeah.
I think Enric and Salute had a nice setup where they had bangers of two jumps back to back in the POW, and they had some good stuff. But
I think it's
man,
probably the exact same 2 jump line. It might
oh
be the
yeah,
same line in the backcountry.
okay,
Maybe not. I'm not sure. It's the same zone.
okay. And Colby does switch left 9 blunt to right 9 mute. Then another shot, switch right 5, 3 tap into left rodeo 9, kind of tail blunt, and left 7 reverse mute into right dub 10 mute. All of them perfect. Dude, it's like, that's something I love as much as some people sometimes say, oh, you only need one shot on one spots in the street. But sometimes I'm like, if you get 3 bangers, that's even cooler to see like
Yeah.
one after another and seeing that, the more the better. But to
Yeah.
see, and as you said, as we said many times, landing one line, one nice is hard. He gets 3 with 3 different tricks that are, oh my God, dude.
Like all 4 different ways of spinning. Like he's just so dialed. And yeah, I agree. Like I hate seeing too much repetition, but sometimes when you just put an absolute smack down on something, like
Yeah,
I kind of want to see that like you absolutely ruined that feature. Like you crushed it. Like that's
yeah.
so sick. And all those lines are so good. We were like talking while editing the film and we're like, I mean, it's too much, right? Like, can we take one out? And we're like, no.
No,
Like, what
no.
would you take out? They're all too good. Like they just absolutely killed that jump. So it's like, well, you got to just kind of put it in there. RIP that jump zone. It just got beat down by Colby.
Yeah. Did you hit it?
No, I wasn't there that day. That was him
Okay.
and Blake Wilson were in Wyoming that day.
Okay.
I'm
'Cause,
jealous though. It looked so fun.
dude, what do you think would have been the go-to for you? The choice of line?
Oh my god, I don't even know.
Because it was like a smaller first jump heading into a second that was kind of hip a bit, going to the side.
I feel like the line that Blake did on it in our movie. I think he does a switch 5 to a dub 10. That's probably a go-to Tom line too. I would have probably raced him for like the switch 5 into like a dub 10 type thing or something. A second jump looked perfect for like the tens those guys did, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. It looks really fun. I wish I was there that day. I forget where I was.
Yeah, would have liked to see a classic Wallish Rodeo 9 on the second one.
On the bottom. Yeah,
Yeah,
Colby's Roadie Bio 9 with the tail is so good and had me thinking, man, a Road 9 mute to just a nice stomp would have been nice on that thing.
yeah. So we went around pretty much most of the movie. Shout out to the other ones we didn't mention that were also sick. It was nice to see Nicholas Herrickson um, have a few shots. Shout out to Maggie Voisin getting some nice pow shots. Yeah, man, you guys killed it.
Thank you. Yeah, too fun. It was a really fun year. I mean, we had so much good snow, a lot of long days and a lot of work, but so fun to see it all to come together. And yeah, great crew, like just great vibes all year. And that's the whole good company thing. And it was great, me, Colby, and Maggie to kind of pull our funding and like sledding with her too, to talk about Maggie a little bit at least. Like she's so dialed now and so fun to sled with and ski with. Like such a confident young woman, and like on the sled now, she goes everywhere, and she's like so down to huck something. Like she's just like one of the boys out there ready to send. And like she ended up filming, she was going to film more with us and filmed with TGR for the whole end of the season, which
Mm.
was like an opportunity she couldn't miss. So she's going to have a big segment in their movie, a bunch of Alaska footage. And it was like, go get it, girl. Like we were supposed to film a little bit more, and she's got a cool segment, but I think she's going to have some even more bangers in the TGR movie. I was like, you don't turn down a heli trip with
Yeah.
TGR. Like, yeah, we're going snowmobiling. It's okay. We'll get you next year, Maggie. Like, go on the heli trip. Like, that's Alaska.
Yeah.
So
Just like what you said with Walker, you say yes.
you say yes. You always say yes. Like, unless it's something you're uncomfortable with, like, you just like say yes to opportunities, go where you can go, ski with whoever it is, and learn from there.
Mm. Yeah. To end off the episode, shall we get into the Patreon questions?
Oh, sure. Forgot about Patreon questions. Hit me with them.
So, first off, we got Will Cameron who asks, I really want to know what is Tom's favorite movie and favorite segment. And it can be from the same movie. So, little challenge.
Ooh, favorite movie. I mean, it's hard for me still to this day to not say Refresh as a movie was my favorite movie. That level one era was really good and the best of times, and the whole vibe, the way the movie's cut, the voiceover, everything's amazing. Favorite segment, not going to be then from that movie. I'm going back a little ways. Favorite segment? I mean, it's a cop out, but I could just easily say that JP Auclair and All I Can might be one of my favorite segment because of the motivation, the encouragement, and the vibes that it brings. Still, so
Yeah.
we'll go
The,
that way. That's a safe call.
the All I Can was the one in the streets, right?
Yep, the
Yeah.
street
Okay.
with the yellow
Yeah.
jacket, the original JP Street segment, which obviously led to us working together, my imagination piece, and everything from
Hmm.
that. So it's a really cool segment to still think about.
Okay. Sounds good. And what if you didn't go the safe route? Like, you have 5 minutes after
We're
the
talking like a
podcast.
full part.
Yeah. You have 5 minutes and you want to watch something to get hyped before going skiing. What are you watching? Like, I'll give you some inspiration. To me, getting hype is like Charlie Owens and Shay Flynn in the 86 with that Kendrick Lamar song. It's Clayton Villa in Mutiny. It's Ahmet in I Trip with that Chip. Was it Chip the Ripper?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I would go further back if I really needed motivation and something that, like, I know I'm going to remember all the words of the song and something that's going to really get me hyped. It's definitely going to be like Pep in session 1242, because that's the kind of skiing I still want to do. And that like song is absolutely insane. So it would probably be that, or I would go back and watch Dave Crichton in Level One's Forward, the opening segment.
Yes, sir.
Like those two are like my era. That like anything nowadays, like I was a part of the scene, and I still think like my footage from the time would still get me more hyped than watching something else, because it's
Mm,
like, oh shit, I got to remember I can do that stuff. Like I
yeah.
should go send some shit. But like when I was a kid, watching Pep in 1242 and watching Crichton in Forward was like, I'm going to do those things. And now I find myself 20 years later landing Switch and POW and filming Urban. So I guess
Fuck
it
yeah.
worked out.
Yeah. Those are good ones. And I didn't mention it, but your song and your segment gave me some old school vibes. It gave me like Teddy Bear Crisis vibes.
That's what I was going for. That's great to hear. That's literally what I want. That song reminded me of like that vibe, and the little speed up edit cuts and like the backcountry jumps. Like everything was that inspo. Sick.
Let's go. Yeah, we're on the
It hit
same
the
page.
mark.
Yeah.
That's what I was going for.
Holden Baldassi goes with a a trick question. How many pairs of skis does T-Wall break per season? Are you hard on your gear?
I'm really hard on the gear, but I don't really break the skis. I destroy park skis by like overdoing it at the park and then riding them on the street. and then they're just not skiable in the park anymore because they're so slow. But like I don't really break them. Like they don't like break in half, but they get really fucked up from riding downstairs and slamming into stuff. I would say I use about 5 pairs of park skis a year. So I have fresh ones, then I destroy them, then I have fresh ones, like 4 or 5, but they're never really like broken. They're just like destroyed, and then I mount new ones because I'm very fortunate. And I probably use two pairs of backcountry skis a year. I use like I have a skinnier. I have like a 108 and a 115 that I use for bigger jumps and bigger tricks, and then like a 122 that I land switch it on. So probably have 2 pairs of backcountry skis mounted all year and go through like 5 pairs of park skis.
That's good. I've heard worse.
If you ski a bunch of park on any ski, they're gonna fall apart too. And we've had some issues with like the production on my skis where some were good, some weren't bad, like were fine. And we've got some new stuff coming where I've been testing skis this summer and I had a couple of the other like younger line kids down there testing. We got a new prototype like design that we're going with. My whole goal is to make my skis like even way more durable. So I'm hoping we get to a point where outside of urban, mine will last me like a full season. And we've got like some crazy new tech that I'm stoked on that like finally is really sick too.
Raf Diaz asks, what's the most surprising places you've been to, skiing or not?
Ooh, wow, that's an interesting one. I mean, I don't know, surprising places. I mean, I would say the most. I'm gonna go skiing because it's like all I really travel for. I mean, most surprising and the like most interesting thing I've ever done is that Russia trip years and years ago. Like our experience skiing street in Russia, especially with where the state of like US Russian relationships are now, it seems so far fetched and crazy that we went to Moscow, wore bright colored tall tees, and walked around the city and skied urban. It was like we were so out of place and so uncomfortably dressed and looked like it was like one of the more unique world experiences I've ever had.
And did you realize it at that point, or you were just in your Talty world, not thinking about that?
Kind of like we realized it after a couple days of like what we were wearing and the looks we got, but like we kind of just like didn't care. But it was still stressful. I mean, there's like a language barrier and a lot of police presence and a lot of AK-47s being near us and bribing cops and trying to get away. Like it was just like a very high stress place to film urban.
Snow Sauce asks, is the rumor true that you skied bell to bell at Park City every day your first season out there?
That's probably a bit of an overstatement. It probably wasn't bell to bell every day, but it was damn near close. And it wasn't every day. I had classes my first year at Park City on Tuesday and Thursdays. So I skied 5 days a week, more than likely like 9 to 3, if not 4, like probably damn near every day. But 2 days a week I had school, unless I like, if it was a really good day, I might skip class for it. But yeah, it was like I grew up skiing 2 days a week, bell to bell, probably the weekends only as a weekend warrior. So when I moved to Utah, it was 5 days a week instead of two, with a much better park. And that's like where all the progression in my skiing came from, was that first year, crazy hours, crazy time, and a way better setup.
From Sam Chef, what are some of the spots you had the most fun at? And who are some of your favorite people to hit street with?
Ooh, I got to shout out, probably got to shout out Mike Hornbeck as my favorite person to hit street with. He's hilarious. I mean, I've had so much fun with so many of our crew, from like Tim and Nicholas and Tucker and all the 4x9 guys over the year. But like my days with Hornbeck are just hilarious. He is such a Midwest hillbilly and such a good time, and probably like the most fun. I mean, we did that trip to Finland and Sweden for Baltic ski. That was me, Hornbeck, Kai, and Nicholas Eriksson. And just like the vibe of no pressure, just taking trains, just absolutely like losing it with how absurd it was. And like just hitting whatever we found was really cool. And like Hornbeck just makes me laugh and always keeps the crew in a good spirit when you're filming street.
Dope. And to the first part of that question, what are some of the spots you've had the most fun at?
Oh, what spot? Oh, the spot particularly. I mean, the most fun spot last year was that long, kinky, like 8 kink rail I did a K-Fed on for sure, and that was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. But for me, I think like over the last couple of years, I'm trying to think, just any spot with natural speed is so fun. I'd say the spots that I got the most enjoyment out of the last couple of years were the things we filmed in Pittsburgh, because that was like a dream for me to film street back in the city where I grew up. And one of the things that like may not seem like a cool shot to everybody there, but there's like the line that I do where I do like a wall ride, slide a rail, drop in, and like hit the bottom part of a rail.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just at a high school that was like a mile from my house growing up. It's not the high school I went to, but like that double kink's been there for a long time. You can't really hit the whole thing anymore because the bushes have grown in so big. But I just always wanted to hit something at that school. Matt Heffernan hit the rail years and years ago, who was another Ohio kid that passed away. And like, I've just always wanted to hit that spot for like icon's sake, for me growing up around there, for him, for everything. And being able to like ski there was like one of the more fun sessions. And we skied with like, it was me and Lupe and Owen and AJ. And it was just like a good vibe shoot.
Thanks a lot for coming on, Tom. Really
Yeah, no
appreciate
problem.
you taking the time. Congrats again on the movie.
Thank you. Stoked.
I think people are really gonna like it. What's up with Good Company? Do you have any plans as of now, or what's your season looking like as of now?
The season looks, we're getting it figured out. We're definitely going to do some film stuff. It may or may not be another full movie, or maybe a focus more on like some short form content pieces. I know Colby wants to continue and do maybe actually a solo project or do something else. We'll still film some stuff together. And I'm hoping to do a couple more events next season. So some more rail jams and host and help with some more events. So between that and some filmmaking stuff, it'll be busy, but no big plans for like a full Good Company, like long format movie. But we've got things in the works for some more content stuff, and just going to keep on keeping on. It's going to be busy.
Let's go. Thanks a lot, bro.
Yeah, no problem, man. Great catching up and great talking skiing for a couple hours. I love it.
So this is it for episode 44 with Tom Wallisch. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys did as well. Big thanks to the sponsors of this episode, Access Board Shop, Planks Clothing, and Decan's Restaurants. Big shout out to the patrons on Patreon again. If you want to join in, check it out at patreon.com/the Mayrand Podcast. Peace.